I thought, are you the man tonight? Are you the man tonight? Are you the man tonight?
Yes, I get the privilege, yes.
Okay.
But I don't want to load you down.
Oh,
Let's see you go back and forth. I know what you guys are doing.
you mentioned
What's that now?
what's he doing?
Oh, okay.
What's his family?
Yeah, Tracy. And their granddaughter, Sonny. Yeah, it was Sonny. Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah, Lawrence and Tracy's. Yeah, I saw that. That was real heartbreaking. Terrible thing to have happen. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I know Mitch, yeah. You know, I'm here.
Well, good evening to everyone. Good evening, good evening. I think we're ready to get started. And with that, Pastor Craig Hansen, thank you for all the times that you are here opening us in prayer. I really appreciate you. Thank you for all you do. You're appreciated, so let's go ahead and let you open us in prayer tonight.
Yeah, I just have one quick scripture I'd like to read. It's out of Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 24. It says, "And the Lord commanded us to observe all his statutes, to fear the Lord our God, and it's for our good always." And it says that he might preserve us alive as it is this day. And so with that, I like that, for our good always. It's so wonderful for me to think about how much he loves us, that he wants us to just follow what he's called us to do. So with that said, let's pray. Lord Jesus, we thank you for the privilege of being here, for the governance of the city to open this up. And Lord, we just pray for your Spirit again to just dwell here in the lives and hearts of each person. I pray, dear Lord God, for peace. I pray, dear Lord Jesus, for the business to go smoothly, efficiently, effectively, dear Lord God. And Lord, if there's situations where there might be disagreement or difference of opinion, God, I pray that God, your Spirit will just guide the comments made. And Lord, we know that business is necessary, and governance is what we have to have in our city to make it run efficiently, effectively. So bless each person that's here tonight. And God, we just thank you so much for all the things that you do for us. In Jesus' holy name, amen. Let's say the pledge together. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Pastor Craig. Appreciate it. Let's start with roll call.
Rodriguez.
Here.
Bruner.
Here.
Kinkula. Here. Reynolds.
Here.
Haverfield.
Here.
All present.
Okay, proposed amendments to the agenda. There is one item, and I'm going to state it now, and then we will come back with a reminder. This is item 8.2. This is a public hearing that has asked for continuance, and so we will be voting on that when we get to the public hearing. Other than that, I'm not aware of any amendments to the agenda. Does council, do you have any amendments? Seeing none, I would ask for a motion to adopt the agenda as stated.
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, our consent agenda. I would ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, let's move on to item number 3, proclamations, and we do not have any proclamations this evening. So the next section on the agenda is our public forum, and this is an opportunity for residents wishing to speak on an agenda item for 3 minutes. And Shar, who do we have this evening?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to first state that we did have 2 individuals who signed up for the public forum, but they also signed up for a public hearing, which was 8-1. I just wanted to make sure that they were aware that their public testimony, if it was on 8-1, has to be heard at 8-1 and not during public forum. The first speaker was Robert Denton and then Dennis Schwetzman.
Okay, so they will be given opportunity to speak at the public hearing.
I just
Okay.
need to know if they are speaking on something other than the public hearing 8-1.
Okay.
Okay,
Nope.
no.
So you'll be, sorry, you'll be during the public hearing 8-1 when we get there at 6 o'clock. Thank you.
And with that, Madam Mayor, we do not have anyone signed up for public forum.
Is there anyone here that had intended to sign up that did not get signed up? Okay, seeing no one, we'll move on to the next item, agency and commission reports, and of which we have none tonight, so we're moving right along here. Staff communications, Public Works staff, Jeff. Crystal. Hi, Crystal. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll bring Jeff up in just a second, or he's going to follow me up. So just wanted to give everyone an update on an intersection. It's McDermott and Franklin Road. We're doing some safety improvements. This intersection is a 3-way jurisdiction intersection. Ada County Highway District owns 50% of it. We own 37.5%, and Nampa Highway District owns 12.5%. But in the last 3 to 5 years, this has seen a lot of crashes due to failure to yield and stopping crashes. So we've opted to put in an all-way stop at this location. I will note that it is currently under design for a signal. Haverfield, you'll appreciate that, it's a signal. But install probably won't happen until fiscal year 27. So it's a few years from that. One of the benefits that we're going to see right now by putting in an all-way stop is you'll see the State Highway 16 construction as well as our Franklin Road construction happening. So this will give us an opportunity to slow the vehicles down prior to getting into the construction zone. Construction will likely happen for the next 3 years or so, and then the signal will happen. So it shouldn't delay the road too much, but it should offer a lot of safety improvements. Any questions on that?
Mayor, just quick question. Is it because it's so close to 16, is that why a roundabout's not being considered?
They did analyze both. In this instance, a signal does function better because of the proximity to State Highway 16.
Okay.
Can you repeat that? I didn't hear that. Functions better.
Only in that space.
Mayor Kling,
Yes.
I'd like to ask Crystal a question that's not regarding what she just spoke about. Is that okay? Okay. Okay, so on Midland Boulevard, when you come down from the overpass, you can go northbound, and you can either, at that intersection, you can turn right or go straight, or you can turn left. At that that turn lane is always backed up almost to the intersection of whatever that street is. You know what I'm referring to?
Yeah.
Okay. I wonder how hard would it be to have those 2 lanes turning right into Chick-fil-A and McDonald's area? Because there's so much traffic, it's just terrible. So I'm just wondering if you've taken a look at it. And
Yeah, Councilman Rodriguez, thank you so much for that comment. We have analyzed the Midland and Marketplace, it's that intersection right at Chick-fil-A, and we recognize that there's a lot of delays right there. About a year ago, we completed a study that showed some potential improvements that included dual left turn lanes, some restriping, some channelization specifically around the Costco area.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we can't implement that until ITD is done with their improvements at Karcher Interchange and then along State Highway 55, because we don't want to put our improvements in and then have their improvements change how ours will work. But you'll likely see improvements there as soon as ITD is done with
Oh,
their
good.
their
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Any other questions?
Thank
All
you,
right,
Crystal.
Jeff?
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I want to give you a quick update on our wastewater treatment plant expansion project going on. I've highlighted everything that you have in this quick presentations in your packet tonight. I'm just going to highlight a few elements of the project. First of all, we're about 64% done. 123 million of the 182 million has been spent, and so we are still on schedule, and we're still within that original budget, including the $3 million grant. So things are moving along very well. I do want to highlight so the 48-inch recycled water line is under construction right now. They're laying the pipe along the railroad. If you see in the lower picture just how large that pipe is going to be, and that will be discharging through Fred Meyer parking lot right there into the Phyllis Canal. So they're starting on this part of the project, and then they'll be working their way, and they're going to do what's called a micro tunnel underneath the railroad that will soon. The pits for the microtunnel will soon be excavated. That's probably going to be in the winter months. That'll be started. I just want to highlight that clarifier number 4 is done and it's online. And the beauty of this progressive design build project is that these $10 million facilities are starting to come online while the contractor's still on site. So our crews are working it, they're working out the bugs. If there's any issues, the contractor's right there to help out. The engineer, Jacobs, is on site. So things are moving along nicely, and wanted to give you an update. So thank you.
Jeff, I just want to say thank you. You know what? As I sit and watch this, for an engineer in construction, what a fun project. It is way cool to think this is under construction in our community. Very forward-thinking. It's excellent.
We'll be the
So-
second largest wastewater treatment plant in the state of Idaho, largest recycled water project, and the largest public progressive design build projects going on. So it's, kind of a once-in-a-lifetime project.
And the other cool thing is that when you think about it, with supply chain issues and the cost of goods that has supply chain pause, cost of goods crazy high, we are on time within budget. Well, that speaks highly to the process, to all those involved, and I just say you're to be commended for that, because that's really, really great.
One last thing, I wanted to thank Councilman Bruner and Councilman Haverfield and the mayor for being on the Design Review Committee. We just had our meeting number 26 and they've been meeting for years on this project. So excellent planning that went into it. So thank you.
That's why it's targeted. And I also want to, one other call out. You know, yesterday morning when I reached out to Tom Points and to Jeff and to Crystal and a few others about the weather that we could have been, anticipating here, and everybody was like on point, right? And Jeff was like, okay, we can do this. We've got the Vector truck.
Vector
Is that
truck,
right?
correct.
Okay. Anyway, and then this morning, first thing, our guys were out checking storm drains. And Amy last night, late, did a Facebook post, and I just want to say thank you to our team, because we were on top of it. We were making sure that things were under control, even if we didn't need it. I kind of didn't think we did, but you know what? It's better to be prepared, right? So I just want to say huge call out to the employees and the team for the great work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good job. Okay, that ends our staff communications, and now we're on to new business. And 7.1 is an action item, and this is to consider the reappointment of Joe Huff as the city's chief of police, effective immediately.
So moved.
Well, I was going to ask, do we want to hear from me first or later, but we discussed that. So good job. It has been moved and seconded that we reappoint Joe Huff as the city's chief of police, effective immediately. Is there any discussion?
Madam Mayor, not to discount interim Chief Schenkel, because he's done a fantastic job, and I just want to say that publicly. Thank you for what you've done.
Mayor Frank.
Yes.
So the good part about it is if Joe, so if something was to happen to Joe, our NPD staff and under then Chief Schenkel, they brought it together and they did one heck of a job with what they had been put up against. And I just want to say thank you to Captain Schenkel or Chief Deputy Schenkel.
Amen.
I do. The second thing, oh, I'm sorry, and the second thing is when you have a department that works so well with other agencies such as Meridian and Caldwell, you can see Caldwell PD here. Chief Ingram, thank you, sir. And it's a good thing that we have a good community that supports our law enforcement. So God bless you all. You've done a good job. Thank you, Mayor.
Yes.
Mayor, I'm just a little disappointed, and that was such a quick yes, because I'd like to see Chief sweat just a little bit. So, but now there's nothing I could do to make that happen. So his wife's here, so I guess we'll be
Carl, I'm just making it easier on your next ticket.
That's right, multiple tickets.
Actually, I almost forgot to put it on the agenda, and it was tempting to leave it off the agenda for a day, just for one day, yeah, but we didn't. I would like to, real quickly, since we're saying something, I want to say to Interim Chief Kurt Schenkel, you have been delightful to work with these last 30 days, and I think Chief Huff knows this. I really like communication, and absolutely phenomenal communication. And I just so appreciate that. It's nice to be aware of what's happening, and then I can rest at ease because I know what's happening. And so thank you so much. You've been great to work with. And Chief, you missed a really busy week last week. Yeah, because it was a week. Yep, well, it was a day, but yeah, it felt like a week. Yeah. Anyway, a lot of great work, and thank you to all of you. And Chief Rex, thank you for being here. Thank you. Okay, ready for roll call?
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
Jingula.
Yes.
Everfield.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Chief, would you like to come forward? Sure. Huff, I should say.
Well, good evening, and I guess right off the bat, thank you. I appreciate the confidence you have in me and the job that I'm doing, but I would echo what Councilman Rodriguez said. I was gone about 35, 40 days, and I could rest easy knowing that, I had these folks here running the department. I do want to, like you said, call out Caldwell Police Department, Chief Ingram, his Deputy Chief Sean Sepawaga, and Lieutenant Dave Wright. I appreciate you guys taking time out of your schedules to be here, and then members of the command staffs to support me. So thank you very much. And like my letter that I submitted to you guys, I guess I wouldn't say I'm re-energized because I felt like I had a lot of energy when I left, but I've been able to kind of get away from work for a little while, actually put my cell phone down, sleep through the night without phone calls. That fell on Deputy Chief there for a while. So I've got some great ideas on different directions that we can take it, and a lot of it is with partnerships, like Councilman Rodriguez said, with Caldwell Police Department. I mean, we can't do it alone here at the City of Nampa. So again, I'll just want to express my thanks to you and the confidence that you have in me and my abilities, and I promise I'll do you a good job, and I'll continue on. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
Chief, this goes on your lapel.
Okay.
This is Nampa, not Caldwell.
Thank you.
Well, I tell you what, I so appreciate these working relationships. It's the best it has been. And you know what? It's all about people, right? And choosing to work together. And so I think it's awesome what the city of Caldwell's doing under your leadership, Chief. And the collaboration that's taking place is phenomenal. And our entire community is going to be better because of it. So thank you, guys. Thank you all. Thank you to our team. And don't be strangers in my office, right?
Mary Clean, I'd
Yeah.
like to hear from Chief Ingrid just for a moment.
Mayor, thank you. Council, thank you. Yes, sir.
Oh, I just want to say thank you for you helping us in the rough week that we've had, and also in fighting this gang activity that seems to be increasing. And
Yes, sir.
you formed a new group now just to fight just that, right?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, I just want to say what a great job that Chief Schenkel has done. To talk about the communication, to piggyback off what you said, Mayor, he has been phenomenal. One of my biggest pet peeves is the lack of communication from anyone, whether it's family, friends, colleagues, my boss. Kurt Schenkel is the epitome of responsiveness. And so in the last month, since Chief Huff's been gone, the city of Caldwell has experienced a lot of issues with certain people attacking our elected officials, and Nampa PD has really stepped it up, as they have forever. But I'm so proud to be their partner and so proud to represent everyone. And yes, to answer your question, Councilor Rodriguez, our gang unit is working in tandem with Nampa's SCU and just SIU, and just doing a phenomenal job. We can't do it alone. As Jason Cantrell said, criminals know no borders, and that couldn't be more true. Just today, I got contacted by Ada County regarding some of our clients from here that are now causing a mess over there, asking us to help them out. So absolutely. And I'm just super proud to be the spokesperson and the voice for the Caldwell Police Department, but I'm very excited to have Joe back in the saddle, and because I don't want to bother him when he was doing his thing. Just, basic things like meeting up for coffee. So very, very proud of them, and thank you for reappointing him. It means a lot for us, and our partnership will be stronger than ever.
Mayor, quick question. Did you help Chief Huff with tying his tie?
I think it's a clip-on tie.
Oh, clip-on.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
When we talk about gangs and the uptick, I guess my question, because part of me wants to say, I don't know that it's an uptick in gang activity. It's the same people again and again and again. And one of the problems we have is what we're doing with the people that we're arresting. Because it isn't like we have, maybe we have some new people, but the problem is we're having to go after the same people again and again, the same familial, genealogy that has been out there. And that's where we need the support of our judges, our prosecutors. There's a whole lot of support that we need out there to really deal with the gang side, because that's probably the biggest challenge that we face. If I'm wrong, am I wrong on that? Okay. Yeah, I just thought I'd say that, because it isn't that we've got more new, it's that we've got the same ones over and over again.
That's
So,
true. Thank you, Mayor.
yeah. Thank you, guys. Thank you. I wonder who gets the short straw, who gets to stay? Okay, thank you all. Item 7.2 is an action item, and this is to authorize the mayor to sign a resolution naming the new dog park located at 11370 Smith Avenue, Huckleberry Dog Park.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. I have to say on discussion, so when I went huckleberry picking, my dog likes huckleberries, and he picked huckleberries and ate them just like we did. It was just crazy.
We found
So-
the best place to find huckleberries.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, Albertson's Marketplace in Meridian.
There you go. Yeah, a little easier. Anyway, okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion on Huckleberry Dog Park? Okay, roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
Jingula.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Item 7.3 is an action item, and this is for the Parks and Recreation staff authorization to allow the Daughters of the American Revolution to place a monument display at Liberty Park.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Brunner.
Yes.
Jingula.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Item 7.4 is an action item. For the Nampa Family Justice Center, they're requesting approval to apply for the Idaho Housing and Finance Association 2023 Continuum of Care Grant in the amount of $130,000 over a 12-month period, 7/1/24 to 6/30/25. The grant application includes client rental assistant, case management, mental health services, as well as food and moving assistance.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
Jingula.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
7.5 is an action item, and this is that the police are requesting to amend the Nampa City Code by adding a new section under Title VII Traffic Regulations titled Use of Center Turn Lanes. This has been approved by legal. Is there any discussion?
So moved, Mayor.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Turner,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Haverfield,
Yes.
Jingula.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Item 7.6 is an action item, and this is to adopt the Midland Corridor Study as presented as part of the future corridor and intersection designs and improvements.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Haverfield,
Yes.
Jingula.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Item 7.7 is the first reading of the street naming ordinance for North Blackmore Lane, North Prelude Lane, North Weldon Lane, East Caliper Lane, East Mosaic Lane, East Stonecrest Lane, and East Tilston Lane. This is for the Cherry Canada family, multifamily development, and Shar will be reading the ordinance, and it is requested to pass under suspension of rules.
An ordinance of the City of Napa, Canyon County, Idaho, naming private streets, North Blackmore Lane, North Prelude Lane, North Weldon Lane, East Caliper Lane, East Mosaic Lane, East Stonecrest Lane, and East Tillistone Lane.
Mayor Kling, I'll make a motion to pass the ordinance as read under suspension of rules.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
Jingula.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Item 7.8 is an action item, and this is to authorize the mayor to sign the First Amendment to the Professional Services Amendment for Plan Review and Building Inspection Services with Safe Belt. This is to increase the total not to exceed the contract fee amount of $400,000 and to extend the contract duration through September 30th, 2024. It is approved by legal, and it is approved in the 23 and 24 budgets. And part of the reason for this extension at the level that it is, it has to do that we will be transitioning some of our staff. We're going to be using Safe Built more than we had anticipated. The question I have for council, I don't know if you have any questions beyond what was in your packet. Do you need a presentation?
Just a quick question.
Okay.
The salaries that, for those individuals that have chosen to move on, does it offset this, or is it still being held within the budget in the event that another hire can take place?
Right. I'll let Patrick answer that.
Mayor and Councilman Haverfield, we have a blended budget where we are pulling from salary savings that we've had in FY23, and then also a budget amount, and then also what we budgeted in FY24 just for plan review services, which leaves all of our vacant positions intact.
Okay, so we won't be exceeding the budget that's been approved, it sounds like. If anything, there might be some savings that could take place depending on the amount of work that they'll need to provide for us. Is that correct?
Right.
Mayor and Councilman Haverfield, that's correct. As our intention is to, as we hire, initially we will use them quite a bit because we have quite a bit of permits right now. When as we're able to hire, then we will drop off those services.
Okay. Patrick, if I make a comment, I think in FY23, we definitely have that budgetary capacity to cover it. It's not an amendment issue in FY23. In FY24, that kind of depends on how fast you can hire and stop using the Safe Light. So if it goes on for an extended period of time, you'll need an amendment, but it kind of depends.
Well, when we look at salaries and benefits compared to the consulting cost per hour, I'm just wondering if they kind of play out similar.
In the short term, they do. In the long term, because it costs more to hire, yeah.
But our current budget, I believe, has contractual services with Safe built in. Is that correct?
Mayor, that is correct.
Right. So we already have some built in,
Right, we
plus
do.
we have some. Between the two, the goal will be to stay within FY23 budget and not have to come back for an amendment.
Okay.
FY23 will be good.
24, yeah.
We'll hold you to that.
Okay. Okay, so it has been moved and seconded. Is there any, there has not, oh, I'm sorry.
Madam Mayor, I would move that we approve action item 7.8.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
Jingula.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Jeff, why don't you go ahead and come up? The next three items, 7, 9, 7, 10, and 7, 11, are all task orders for cost of service studies. And so I don't know if there are any questions, but Jeff, do you want to just very briefly mention the fact that all three, cost of service, anything we need to know?
Mayor and city council members, so we updated our master plans, and part of that process is now we have updated capital plans moving forward. It's part of our due diligence, part of our planning process. We have water, irrigation, and wastewater utilities, and we have rates associated with the amount it takes to run those utilities. This plan is updated the same amount of time along with our master plan, which is usually anywhere from 1 to 5 years. So now that we have an updated water, irrigation, and wastewater master plan, these cost of service studies coincide with that so that we know what rates we need to build and to maintain the systems.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff. And you can just stand there as we go through this if you want. So the action item 7.9 is to authorize the mayor and the public works director to sign a task order and contract with FCS Group for a wastewater cost of service and rate study for $62,760, time and material not to exceed. It has been approved by legal, and it is approved in the FY23 and 24 budgets.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any
Question.
discussion? Question?
Since all three of these are with the FCS group, why aren't they all in one motion? If it's all the same study, I know it's different aspects of the study, but it seems to me that we could have combined all three.
Councilman Haverfield, we may have been able to. We decided to separate it for clarity and keeping it in the project
Transparency.
files. Yeah.
All right, that's good enough answer.
Okay. Any other
Mayor?
questions? Yes.
I have a question, if you don't mind. So the 62,760, 62,760, and 57,860, what's the total? And also, is this going to reflect onto, or is it going to be, are the taxpayers going to have to pay for this? Or is this going to be already in our budget that's not going to taken out of sewer and irrigation?
Councilman Rodriguez, and having Daniel do the math for all three, I want to say, though, that the amounts of these three are less than the ones we did in 2014, so we feel like it's in the ballpark for the costs associated with this type of work. It is under the FY23 budget, and so it's paid for as part of the budget process. If rates are increased in the future, it'll be based on this study, so we're not there yet. So it's in an existing budget.
So in 24 budget, I see that we may end up having to increase some of these irrigation fees. That particularly is going to be involved. Is that how we're going to pay this back, is by the 24 irrigation increases?
Well, this is budgeted under our current rate
To
system.
23, I know, yeah.
But yeah, this will be used to determine and present options on moving forward. Presentation of the rates is a recommendation based on these reports, and that'll be in the future and presented to the city council.
I see. Now, I know this is a 23 budget, but it's going to leak into 24,
Correct.
right?
Yes, correct,
Okay.
sir.
So that's what I'm concerned about, is that is this going to be held on to in the 23 budget, but we'll end up paying for the 24?
Yeah, it'll be rolled over into 24, and we're managing this project, so we're going to get on it right away.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I think the key is that in order to know, because I sit on the Board of Appraisers, and for the Board of Appraisers to have an idea, and for staff actually, to be able to identify, really, it is the cost of service, it is a rate study, and you have to have a basis for the decisions and the recommendations that you're making. And this is really how that comes forward. The goal is not to increase more than we have to increase to get the work done. And I love hearing that this is actually less than it was in 2014. That's amazing. So that's good news. Not that you want to spend the money, but there's no direct impact on taxpayers either, because this is in the enterprise funds and the rates.
Mayor, Councilman Rodriguez, one other thing to note, that with the implementation of the impact fees for the utilities, specifically on the irrigation side of things, there were things that ratepayers were paying for the irrigation stations that will now be funded through the impact fees. So that is one thing that will go into this updated rate study and will affect the needs and the projects we're able to do as we look at the cost of service and the revenue needs.
Okay, that was going to be my next question. So what's the total of all this?
180.
Well,
Sorry.
What is it?
but it is applied, just so you know.
183,380.
Okay,
It gets applied to the respective, irrigation is 57,000, cost of water is 62, and then the wastewater 62. So it isn't, that's why it, in some ways, is good to have it separate motions, because they're separate funds.
okay.
So it doesn't all come into one.
All right, thank you for that
So-
clarification.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second for the task order for wastewater cost of service study. Roll call.
Rodriguez,
No,
Brunner,
Yes.
Chingula,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
4 in favor, 1 opposed, motion carries.
710 is the inaction item, similar, and this is for the water cost of service study at $62,760.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez,
no,
Brunner,
Yes.
Chingula,
Yes.
Haverfield,
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
4 in favor, 1 opposed, motion carries.
711 is also an action item, and this is the same topic. It's the irrigation cost of service study, and in the amount of $57,860.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez,
no,
Brunner,
Yes.
Chingula,
Yes.
Haverfield,
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
4 in favor, 1 opposed, motion carries.
Thank you, Jeff. Recognizing that it is after 6, I am going to go ahead and take us through the rest of the new business items because we're almost through them. So we're going to move on to 712 on the agenda. This is an action item to authorize the mayor to sign an encroachment agreement with High Valley Developmental Services. This is for 2 picnic tables to be placed in the public right-of-way at 9 Wall Street.
Move.
Thank you.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez,
yes,
Chingula,
Yes.
Haverfield,
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
713 is an action item, and this is to authorize the state-local construction agreement for Cherry Lane, Franklin Boulevard to 11th Avenue North project, and authorize the mayor to sign the agreement once received. It's a standard agreement that is approved by legal. It is pending approval of the FY23 budget amendment.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez.
yes,
Chingula,
Yes.
Haverfield.
This has been approved by legal, so I'll say yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
714 is an action item, and this is to authorize the chief financial officer to sign the early redemption of the LID 148 bond. It has been approved by legal.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez.
yes,
Brunner.
Yes.
Chingula,
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
715 is an action item, and this is to authorize the engineering division to proceed with the bidding process for the elevated water tank, Well 8, and the booster station replacement project. This has been approved in the FY23 budget.
So move.
It's been moved and seconded, whichever place you want to take the motion, Darrell.
Or third.
Or third, yep.
Exactly.
Any discussion?
Just for clarification, this is just to proceed with the bidding process, but not any award.
Yes, and actually, it could have gone on the consent agenda. I put it here because I have to say, it is way exciting that we are moving forward with our water tank. And so that's really why it's on here, because I just wanted to make sure everybody knew we're going to get it done. That's pretty exciting. So.
And what's
anyway,
going to be written on it, Mayor?
It's going to have our logo on it, I think.
That's what I did.
I think it's going to be our logo. I don't think
Your
Amy's in
face
here.
on it.
Picture of
It's in memory, right? I got to thinking about what that sounds like, so I need to retract it. But yeah, in memory of your service.
At my age, it's very appropriate, Mayor. Okay.
dear Darrell.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes,
Chingula,
Yes.
Haverfield,
Yes.
Brunner,
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
I would like to adjust real quickly. Our public hearings 8.1 is the airport rates, but because we're going to do a continuation on 8.2, and Patrick Connor is here, I would like us to very quickly go ahead and move to 8.2 on the agenda. And it has been requested that this particular public hearing be continued, and I'm going to say again. And the reason it's been continued again has to do with, they're working on a contract with the adjoining landowners, am I correct on that? And they're almost done, which is awesome. I'm sure that's a great feeling of accomplishment, and really what they'd like to do is have that complete before they come before public hearing. Have I stated that correctly? Okay, so with that, I would stand for a motion to continue the annexation and zoning of RS 6, I'll just put the subdivision preliminary plat for Stoddard, and the annexation and zoning to a date certain of September 5th.
Second. Okay.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Did I get that right? It's that date, okay.
September 5th?
September 5th. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Roll call.
Rodriguez. Oh. Brunner.
Yes.
Everfield.
Yes.
Jingula.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Perfect, thank you. So you don't have to sit here any longer. There we go. Okay, so we're going to move back to our first public hearing of the evening, and this is the recommended FY24 airport rates and fees. And so Crystal Craig is going to provide the staff report, and I know a lot of this information was in our packet, but Crystal, thank you for walking us through it.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Let me pull this up real quick. Perfect. So, as Mayor mentioned, we are here for the FY24 rate adjustment presentation. So, similar to the presentation that I gave in February, I'm going to start with a background on needs, so why we're here, as well as the rate adjustment history, so what's the driving force behind it. Then I'm going to go into the rental facility analysis that we completed as an airport, the impacts to the users and the revenues, and then finally give you the proposed rate increase. So a little bit of background on this. In 2022, Airport Business Solutions completed our strategic business plan, and they identified our airport rates as below market rate. So in February of 23, we came before council, and it was a new market rate was implemented for the land leases. At that time, council requested that staff look at the rate adjustments for all of the city-owned hangars. So this is us coming back to fulfill that promise. Also, in conjunction with this, we are asking for our annual CPI increase. So airport rental and land leases are adjusted every year by the annual CPI. So instead of coming back twice, once for the rental hangars and then once for the CPI increase, we're requesting both at this hearing. I understand this is a lot of information. It's a big slide to show, but I just wanted to give a little bit of history about the CPI increases and what we've done at the airport so far. So in the bold sections in 2013, 21, and 23, you see that we approved land or leasehold increases for the privately owned hangars for all of those years, as well as the CPI increases for almost every year. The last increase we did for the city-owned rental hangars was in 2008, so that was 15 years ago. We included it all the way to 2006 because it was part of a 3-year plan for increases. So first going into the CPI increase, so that's the first step of this. Land leases by contract are tied to the West Region Consumer Price Index from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. What we do is we look at the previous calendar year of the CPI change, and it's used to adjust the next fiscal year. So you can see highlighted in red down here, looking at the previous fiscal year, which was fiscal year 22, it recommended an 8% increase. I'm sure you guys all remember the inflation from last year. So that is affecting this year's rate increase. So that will be for FY24, just for clarity. And then the second prong of this was the rental analysis that we completed by the staff. So first we analyzed the rental facilities and their current revenues. We reviewed our wait list length. So currently that's about 3 years. There's about 100 people on the wait list for our city-owned hangars. And then we tried to review neighboring airport rates and fees so we can kind of get a comparison. Based on our comparisons, on average, we found that Nampa is about 32% below the nearest market competition for our city-owned hangars. So looking at what we actually looked at here. So our hangar facilities, the bulk of them are T-hangars, where we have 129 T-hangar spaces, 18 in-hangar spaces, and those are shown in the graphic in that pinky color. In the yellow, you'll see our shade hanger facilities, which is 2 buildings and about 30 spaces. And then in blue, you see our tie-down spaces, and there's about 56 of them. So those are the ones that will be affected by the market rate increase. Everybody will be affected by the CPI increase. So our market rate comparisons, this was very challenging for us to complete. We kind of gave a range of our hangars for Nampa on the left side of this screen. Boise Airport, which they also own hangars and are able to rent it, so we compared it to them, understanding that our airports are not similar. We were just looking at the rental rates. So on the ranges that we gave, we used the low end of every single one of these ranges. We have Caldwell up there just for comparison. There's a big old asterisk. They have private-owned T hangars. They do not have city-owned T hangars. So that was not included in the analysis. It's on here for information only. Provo, Utah was another one that we looked at. I understand that's a little bit farther away. Also, their airport is different in scope and size than ours is, but they also have T hangars available for rent. So we compared it to them, and their information was easily accessible to us.
Mayor Kling. Quick question, Crystal. Caldwell only offers standard T hangars and tie downs?
No, they only have tie downs. The twin T hangars and the shade hangars they don't have, and then the standard T hangars are
Right.
privately owned.
They're private?
Yep.
So they really only offer tie downs then?
Yeah.
Wow, thank you.
All right. So the city rental rate adjustment, and this is what we are proposing. Our current revenue that we make off of all of our city-owned hangars is about $350,000 each year. The average increase that we're going to ask for today is about a 30%. So that's 24% for a market adjustment and 8% for the CPI increase. The projected new revenue for this would be about $450,000. So we're looking at about $100,000 more a year in airport revenue based on this. Down below, you can see the table that shows all of the city-owned hangars and how they'll be affected. The largest effect is a 50% change, and that's for the tie-down hangars. Their rent will go up $10 a month. The smallest effect is 11.67. That's for the twin T hangars. Their rent will go up $30 a month. So you can kind of see the estimated breakdowns and how we came to 30-ish% average. So a couple recaps. The market adjustments were last made for the land leases in February of this year of 2023. For rentals, the last market rate adjustment we did was 15 years ago in 2008. Based on our analysis, we found city rental rates are below market rates right now. And then we're also asking for the CPI increase, and all rates are adjusted by the CPI every year. And then just as a point, land lease agreements also allow for the annual CPI increases. So these CPI increases will affect everybody at the airport, not just the city-owned. So what do we want to do with the additional revenue that we get? The first is fund an in-depth analysis on the city hangars. I'll talk about a little bit more about how we did our analysis. It was fairly rudimentary when it came to, does it make more financial sense for us to keep the city buildings and rent them out, or does it make more financial sense for us to sell all the buildings and then convert them to potential land leases? The plan that we would like to propose is, like I said, more in-depth. We did an all-or-nothing type analysis where we either keep all of the hangars and depreciated them and looked at how much it would take to maintain them over the next 30 years, or what it would take if we sold all of them and then got that revenue now and were able to invest that money. So a better analysis could be done that says some of our hangars may be worth more to sell now, and others may be worthwhile to keep. And then the rest would allocate funds to general airport operations and expenses. And then in future years, it could be help fund improvements on the city-owned hangars as identified in our facility improvement plan, and then continue to allocate funds to the general airport as we get more and more needs to keep our level of service high.
Mayor Kling. Crystal, does the FAA offer a best practice analysis to give you guidance or not?
I haven't seen one at this time, but it could be looked into some more. We were hoping to hire someone to do it to help with that analysis, as well as find more comparable airports than we were able to for the market rate. Okay. So about the city hangars, so as I said before, we analyzed the 18 city-owned T-hangar buildings at that time. We determined that it negatively impacts future annual revenues for us to sell all the buildings at this time. So staff recommendation is to keep the buildings at this time, increase the rates, and then do a further in-depth analysis. So the recommendation that we are asking for today is also in line with the Airport Commission's recommendation. They recommended increasing all airport lease and rental rates by the annual CPI of 8%, as well as increasing the rental rates to a competitive market rate, which was about 24% additional for the city-owned hangars. So our request today is to authorize the mayor to sign a resolution increasing airport rental and land lease rates as shown in Exhibit A in your packet. And I've put Exhibit A up here as well. The top half are the city-owned hangars, and then the bottom half are the ground leases that will be affected by the CPI. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Mayor Kling.
Yes.
So, Crystal, you say here that determine selling all 18 buildings negatively impact future annual revenues. But what is not here is what these buildings are appraised as, their selling price.
Yeah.
So I would think we would include that in this report prior to saying that it would negatively impact future annual revenues.
Absolutely, Councilman Rodriguez.
Can you tell me that?
So based on the analysis that we did with our 18 hangar facilities, if we retained ownership, you can see on the top half of this, our annual revenue was $377,000. The estimated associated expenses, and so this is standard maintenance and upkeep, any of the buildings that we knew needed new siding or new roofs, things like that, was about $53,000. So our projected revenue was $324,000 versus the estimated sales for the revenue. We ballparked them, was about $10.5 million to sell all of our hangars, and we did an all or nothing analysis. So like I said, a more in-depth needs to be done on if we did a pick and choose of which ones. The projected land lease revenue is much lower, so we went from $377,000 each year to just $80,000 each year. So it's an average difference of almost $300,000. We would have that $10.5 million in the bank to be able to, invest as we saw fit or do other things, but the revenue of $300,000 a year would hit the airport pretty drastically.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Crystal before we move to public hearing?
Mayor Kling, I was just thinking about the taxiways and runways and such as far as the annual maintenance of the facility itself. Does that come out of the 370 or the 324, along with staff salaries? And I mean, if we were to sell those things, we wouldn't have the ongoing return on as far as investment. So where do those dollars come from?
Councilman Haverfield, the bulk of our maintenance and operations are FAA eligible pavement. So most of the taxiways and taxi lanes that you see in the airport do come from our annual money from the federal government.
Okay.
However, some of the property around specifically the city-owned hangars is not FAA eligible, so we would still be on the hook.
That's what I was
for
wondering
maintaining
as far as the taxiways, if any of that is covered, but it sounds like part of it might be.
Yeah, part of it, but the bulk of it is FAA eligible.
Thank you.
Mayor, question, and this may be a side note, but we want a new terminal, right? And so we have challenges as far as the financing a new terminal. So as far as selling, it could not that 10.5 million be utilized for a new terminal?
It absolutely could.
The challenge then would be how would we manage ongoing operations
Correct.
at the airport? I don't know how we would fund it.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know
Ongoing.
what the estimate is on the new terminal. I'm sure, I think it is.
I think it was $6 million.
I think it's around 12 or 13. Our portion would have been 6 or 7 if we got the grants that we were applying
Yeah,
for.
our revenue.
But if we did allocate that money, it would take, if we didn't get any grants, obviously all of it plus some, and then we would be losing the annual revenue.
Okay, and I know you want to do a study as far as pick and choose. So if we did get those grants and the new terminal for whatever our portion was, 6-7 million, then that remainder 3 point, not selling all the
Yeah.
that buildings may be a possibility to cover some of those costs.
Yep.
So you guys are going to look into that?
Yep, any portion of the sale from any of the buildings could potentially go to a new terminal building.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Crystal, when I was looking through the packet, just want to compliment you on a nice job putting together that. Like everything you do, usually it was fantastic. Thank you for the information and the hard work you put into this presentation.
Councilman Reynolds, thank you for that. I would love to take glory and credit, but our crack airport staff comes with all of the data, and I just stand up here looking super smart.
Thanks to all of them, too.
You deliver well.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. Any other questions? As you know, Crystal, we'll have you back in just a little bit after we get done with the public hearing. And then thank you for taking notes so that you can answer all the questions that come forward. Thank you. Okay. I think we're ready for public hearing. Here we go. And you know what? I'm sorry, as you, you pause and then go. For those that are wanting to testify this evening, just a reminder that you'll have 3 minutes. As you come forward, please state your name and your address. And when your 3 minutes is up, it's going to blink and say that you're done, and we're going to have to ask you to respect that time. I don't know, how many people do we have signed up?
Madam Mayor, we have 7.
Okay. All righty, so here we go.
Madam Mayor, our first speaker is Russell Johnson, and on deck is Robert Denton and Dave Taylor.
Good evening, Mayor Kling and council members. My name is Russ Johnson. I live at 627 East Revere in Boise. I've been a city hangar tenant for 11 and a half years. The Nampa Airport is a vibrant general aviation, or GA, field, uniquely supportive of grassroots aviation, of which I'm a representative. We're blessed and thankful to have it. And the city is to be commended for making and sustaining it as the resource that it is. I'm respectfully asking the council to not approve the current resolution and to instead consider an alternative path forward for 3 reasons. First, the analysis on which it is based is at best superficial and inaccurate. Boise is a large TSA-compliant commercial airport with complex facilities that's simply not comparable to Nampa. Its overhead costs vastly exceed Nampa's. It has less than 25% of Nampa's standard T-hangar inventory. Its hangars generally have greater quality and amenities than Nampa's. All of these factors produce higher rates at Boise. An analysis that normalized for these factors would show that Boise and Nampa rates are actually closer to parity. So what Exhibit A actually shows is not Nampa's deficiency, but its uniqueness and value for grassroots GA. Second, the abruptness and magnitude of this rate increase are not justified or necessary. The rationale at the bottom of Exhibit B is grossly out of proportion with a 30% single-year rate increase. The city facilities are not pristine, but are also not in need of major capital expenditure of an urgency or pace that justifies an immediate increase of this magnitude. Third, the rationale at the bottom of Exhibit B, third, the exhibits show no consideration of the undue impact on grassroots GA tenants and potentially the airport businesses we support. There's often a misconception that GA is uniformly comprised of people with deep pockets. But operators like me and your tenants are a large portion of it. Perfunctory analyses and draconian proposals such as this are mortal threats to the financial viability of grassroots GA, which is why it and many associated small businesses are dying in places that do not value and support it the way Nampa historically has. To conclude, these proposed rates are needlessly hostile to city hangar tenants and grassroots aviation at Nampa. I implore the council to please pump the brakes, to not approve this resolution, and to instead take an alternative path toward the same goals by doing a carefully designed, unbiased, objective market analysis, and if the results truly warrant a significant rate increase above CPI, phase it in over a 3 to 4 year period, for example, rather than impose it instantaneously. Instead of making us casualties, that approach would make us your partners and allies in sustaining and improving this great thing that all parties have going here at Nampa. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you very much, and thank you. We are in the receipt of the document that you gave us in advance. We appreciate that. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, our next speaker is Robert Denton, and on deck is Dave Taylor and Dennis Schwetman.
My name is Bob Denton. I reside at 5615 Meadow Court, Napa, Idaho. I have a handout I'd like to give you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Just very simple. What I've proposed here is I just looked at 119 hangars and proposed what I thought a conservative price per hangar would be. And I came up, if you sold 119 hangars at $50,000, you'd have $5,950,000. If you invested that money, just invested it only, didn't do anything with it, invested it, you get $386,759 per year. If you didn't touch it, just invest it for 6%. If you look at the T hangars, you rent at $256 per hangar, you'd have $365,000. If you sell and invest, you take the 386 minus the what you got for rent, and you end up with $21,000 net. Then you get your ground lease, and you get another $23,000. So you turn out with about $44,000 if you just invest the money, period. Now, this does not count any maintenance on the hangars, any labor to take care of the hangars, or any of that other stuff, or any lease, or excuse me, any insurance or anything you have on it. So I just wanted to propose this. Now, I know you had we have a little difference, and I'd like to understand why the difference is. Maybe I'll talk to you later on that. But anyway, I'd like to propose that this be looked at as a way to save money. Because take a look at it. If you didn't even touch it, you'd make a lot of money. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, our next speaker is Dave Taylor. On deck is Dennis Schwetman and John Orlovic.
Yes, hello. My name is Dave Taylor. I'm at 18057 Goodson Road out in Caldwell, out by Notice. I guess my comments are exactly what Mr. Johnson's comments were on this. I question the validity of the study. I'm not sure we're using the right parameters. And I don't think we're in competition, or we should be in competition with other parts of the country or other airports or whatever. I always considered, my tax dollars, my use of the airport. I lost my train of thought there. Let's see, I also agree that we should, maybe spread this out over a couple of years. We're going to hear some more proposals tonight, alternative proposals. I think we should take the time to look at those things. The first indication I had of any kind of a rate increase was when I got a postcard in the mail. So, and I was kind of astounded. I'm on a fixed income. I don't have hot rods. I don't have big fancy cars. My love is aviation. And this, would put a dent, in my ability to, enjoy my passion here. I'm also the president of the Top Fun Flyers Flying Club. We're based out of Nampa and have been since the mid-'80s. Okay, we're probably the oldest flying club in definitely this part of the valley there. So we're using Nampa Airport, for decades now, and we want to stay there, of course. I've had a hangar there for about 10 years now. I appreciate that, but also too, I've noticed that there does not appear to be any kind of maintenance or anything going on in the hangars. So where's my $190, going every year? So I'd like to take a look at the budget, possibly, see what's going on with the airport. Also, one of the things our club does, excuse me, is we are trying to get the youth interested in aviation. And we realize it's very, very costly. The price of fuel is doubled in the last couple of years. Aircraft rental is way up there, and youth are just not getting involved in aviation, I think, because of the cost of doing this. So, I see my time's about up here, but anyway, I guess I would ask that you guys hold off on approving the resolution, until we can take some more time and take a look at this. So, thank you for your time.
Mayor Kling.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Mr. Taylor.
Councilman Haverfeld, yeah.
Mr. Taylor,
Oh, yes.
have you attended any of the meetings that the Airport Commission has on a monthly basis?
No, I have not. I did attend the master plan talks that were held a year or two ago, though. So interested in seeing what's going on.
I would just recommend that you get a hold of Monty or Lindsay and chat with them direct, and especially if you can attend a meeting or two. That gives you more of an insight as to what the budget is and what they use as far as in the metrics in determining what their budget is.
Yeah, I sure will.
All right, thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, our next speaker is Dennis Schwartzman, and on deck is John Orlovic and Hubert Osborne.
Okay.
Then our next speaker is John Orlovic, and on deck is Hubert Osborne and Robert Gwynn.
Hello, Mayor and council members. My name is John Orlovich at 4469 North Waterfront in Boise, Idaho, and I'm representing myself and my father, Paul Orlovich, at 825 East Runnell here in Nampa, and my other partners in the planes that we have. So I saw the same postcard that was referenced. I thank the staff. The staff does a wonderful job, and we love the Nampa Airport and everything that you guys do. But it was a shock to see the increase when I pulled up the packet and saw the proposed rate increases. I personally am involved in a tie-down space, which you're asking for a 50% increase on, and a pre-1990 T-hanger, which you're asking for a 27.8% increase on. We do, in those hangars, most of the time, I know that I and several others, we do our own maintenance of the doors. We, making sure the seals and the hangers and everything are, when I say hangers, the hangers for the doors are proper and working, and they're not going to fail. And that's just the way it is with those hangers. They're older, but we pitch in and do what we can. Like my predecessor speakers have said, is I think you really should take a look at this. I don't think Boise is a good comparison. I'm surprised that Ontario wasn't included. Payette, I'm not sure what they have at Payette or Weiser, but there are other comparable smaller airports not in the class of Boise without a tower. So it would have been nice to have seen what kind of rates they had. Anyway, we do appreciate from a general aviation opportunity what Nampa provides. I think it's bigger and more important than just looking at the numbers. The ability to have an airport and be able to do things and host fly-ins. You saw the Warbird fly-in just recently. What an event. And this airport provides a lot of opportunities aside from just looking at the dollars that it costs. I think it is self-sustaining right now, from what I've heard, and I'm glad you made council member, you made the suggestion about the airport commission. I wasn't even aware of those. I was just fat and happy in my hangar and my tie-down space, so I appreciate that comment. I had a whole bunch of other stuff to say, but after listening to those guys, I'll let it go at that. But I just think you ought to look at it a little closer. And if you do have to make this kind of rate increase, please do it on a staged, multi-year basis, not just hit us over the head with it all at once. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And I think what I hear you saying is that you support the other comments that were made.
Absolutely.
You don't want to repeat them. Okay. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I did want to state that Dennis Schwartzman, even though he did not want to speak, he did state that he was opposed. Is that correct? Okay, I did want to make that for the record. Our next speaker is Hubert Osborne, and on deck is Robert Gwynn.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Hubert Osborne. My wife and I reside at 4199 East Switzer Way here in Nampa. There have been some interesting suggestions made that perhaps deserve some study, but that won't help what needs to be done now. I would point out that Nampa citizens are no strangers to high increases in their fees. The golf course is self-supporting. I see no reason why that should not be the case with the airport. I don't think the city should be subsidizing it as it is, and that's still in the budget for this year, several $100,000. This goes part way to what is needed, and the study on other airport fees, I think, indicates that Nampa hangar people are getting a good deal. So I would encourage you to pass this with, even though the increase is large, it's been a long time since some of those fees have been increased. So if the proponents of lower fees want to come forward with their ideas, I'm sure the Airport Commission would like to hear from them. But I think you need to raise the fees now. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, our last speaker is Robert Gwynn.
Thank you, Mayor Kling and council members. First and foremost, I'm not the voice of aviation or the face, and so the folks that spoke before me have far more years of experience in this industry than I do. And again, I'm Robert Gwynn. My address is 49 North Burlington Drive in Nampa. Really, I speak kind of on a different fraction, of this. I'm new to aviation. I've been welcomed into this community with really big arms, and I would say, as far as from the staff working at the office at the airport, as well as just the folks that are in the hangars and things like that. So I made a couple quick notes. Right before COVID, my colleagues at my school were looking for what would be phenomenal opportunity for kids. Aviation was our pick. And we began to look at what the future would bring for kids if we could break them out of their socioeconomic norm and maybe move them into an industry that would change their lives forever and their families. And so we began to look at that. And when I hear numbers like Nampa is 32% below the market, I think some may look at that and they would say, well, that's disappointing. That's not a good business number. And I want to say I look at that in the opposite because it represents a hidden gem. My wife challenged me some time ago. She said, maybe you should continue to further your education and bump around within the school system. I'm currently an educator. And I said, no, I don't think that I want to do that. I think I want to pursue something that I can show students how they might be able to engage in something. And so that's exactly what we did. We really live by a model within our school called speed of the leader, speed of the team. And so we looked at Nampa Airport as one of those special gifts in the area, a place that really houses some very unique things. What I found as a young man growing up in the area was that I believe the airport really housed people that were people of wealth, and it was a market in general aviation that the average couldn't touch. And what I began to discover at age 50 was that it's people that are working at saving their passion. And now what I'm learning is it's the fact that they want to pass that passion on to young people and continue to pass that market on down. That's exactly what we're after in the same senses. An affordable market that we then can encourage our own kids in our area to say, this is an affordable thing that you can pursue. And you can pursue it not only at a hobby level, but you can also pursue it in a mechanic level under the A&P guide. You can pursue it under avionics. You can pursue it in baggage. You can assume it as a pilot. Every one of those changes our students that to some degree are marketed to be locked into what they believe they can only go one place. And so I would encourage the committee to really take a close look at that. Nampa, again, it's a hidden gem. I've had the fortune of flying all the way across the country and stopping in at multiple airports to see what they may have. I've had the pleasure of listening to people that have moved into our area as I'm out at the airport, walking around and talking with people about their airplanes and where they've come from, what they experience. And and their price range and all those things. And I guess I would encourage the committee at this time and council members to consider that maybe that below market thing is maybe a gift to our young people that are up and coming that may not price them out of something that may otherwise would. So thank you for the time.
Thank you very much.
Mayor
Yes.
Kling?
Yes, Councilman Haverfield.
Mr. Gwynn? I didn't catch, you said you're an educator,
Yes, sir.
a flight instructor, or what are you?
No, thank you for that. I wouldn't insult a flight instructor with that. I'm an educator at a high school, but I'm a person that took risk and bought an airplane, and I'm learning to fly it.
So your heart is reaching out to young people to help them get into aviation, is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, that's correct. And I don't want to take much of your time, but I would say prior to COVID, our school had met with the CEO of Alaska. We had people sent out to our school and stuff just to begin the process of pursuing what an aviation market would look like. We're connected with the Warhawk out at the museum and at Nampa. And so we're doing whatever we can to give our kids just vast opportunity in that. So
I have two thoughts. One is, have you talked to Monty and Lindsay at the airport?
I have not.
Okay, I would recommend that you do that. And then as a target market, if you'd consider Endeavor Elementary, which is near the airport, that's a target for, as far as kids you might go after to encourage them. Because they're near the airport, they're the Rockets, and again, they're just near and dear to my heart, so.
Yeah, agreed, yeah. And I'd say my school is the P-40 Warhawks, and so I'm in that same market as I have high school kids.
Okay.
So yeah, but thank you for that suggestion.
Could I ask
Get 'em young.
what school you teach at?
Ridgeview High School.
At Ridgeview, okay. Great. There you go. Oh,
My kids go there.
There you
Yeah.
go. Yeah, thank you.
thank you so much. Okay, at this time, is that,
Madam Mayor, there is no one else that has signed up to speak.
okay. Is there anyone here that did not get signed up to speak that would like to speak this evening? Yes. Go ahead and come forward and share your name and address.
My name is David Underwood, and I'm from Nampa, Idaho, 419 Fletcher Drive. I'm a blue-collar guy, and I had to work very hard to get my first airplane. It took me 12 years of saving. It's a $20,000 airplane, which, comparatively speaking, is an economical model. To finally get into a hangar 2 years ago was a monstrous gift for me. Compared to the other cities I've lived in before moving to Nampa, aviation was completely unaffordable. I have a passion, like the previous gentleman, to take youth up and expose them, as my father did for me, who was a World War II pilot and flew a CG-4 glider like the one we have in our museum. Isaiah lives right next door, and it took me a year and a half to finally get on his schedule and his mom's to get him up in an airplane. And to make it economical for Mom as a birthday gift, it still cost $100. But it cost $100 because it's here in Nampa, not in Portland or Seattle where I had lived earlier. I hope that you will hear all the different things that were said today on the gift. Thank you for that word. Who shared that? The gift. Thank you. I believe this is a jewel here in Nampa. And I'm only hoping that if cost increase have to take place, they wouldn't have to come as suddenly and drastically as being proposed tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for speaking. Is there anyone else that did not get signed up to speak that would like to this evening? Okay, yes. Go ahead and come forward. Thank you for sharing your name and address.
Jim Morrow, Boise, Idaho. I've had a hangar out here for almost 20 years, off and on, and I just wanted to second the idea data that all I saw in the analysis in this, I just saw it today. I didn't take a close look. Was a comparison to airports bigger than Nampa's. So a comparison to other airports, like was stated before, Ontario, Weiser, Payette, I think would be good to take a look at before we move forward with an increase. And as also stated, if you can do it not in 1 year, stage it out. It would be very nice. And this is a gift and a gem, and it's allowed me to pursue my hobby and passion and introduce a lot of kids to it through our Young Eagles program. And if you have kids, you want to fly, get with the EAA. We give free rides, give them a little education about airplanes, and most of them, it's just a fun day. Some of them pursue it on. You can get a free, not free, but EAA pays for 1 hour of flight instruction, and we do all that out of Nampa. So thank you.
Thank you. So that's called the Young Eagles Program, the EAA. What does that stand for?
Experimental Aircraft Association.
Okay.
Yes, Young Eagles Program. And the chapter at Nampa is Chapter 103. We've been there for, I don't know how long, at least 30 years, I think. So it's been an active chapter. We've given rise to a lot of kids.
Thank you. So Mr. Johnson or Mr. Denton, somebody at the beginning mentioned another program that's out at the airport. What was the name of that program?
That was probably me.
Was it Dave? Say that again.
Dave Taylor. It was the Top Fun Flyers Flying Club out of Nampa.
Top Fun Flyers.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Flyer on top of
All righty.
If I may, there's also other flying clubs at the Nampa Airport.
Would you like to come forward? Go ahead and come forward and tell us what those are, if you would. And go ahead and restate your name again, Mr. Johnson. Yeah.
Again, my name is Russ Johnson, and I'm not completely equipped to speak to this whole issue, but there are a number of joint ownerships and flying clubs at Nampa, in addition to the one Mr. Denton, is it?
Taylor.
Yeah. So there's the Taylorcraft or T-Craft Aero Club. There's also a couple other, I'd have to look at the bulletin board at the airport. I don't remember the names. Perhaps somebody like, maybe even Monty knows. But in general, there's a number of collaborative efforts like that on the Nampa Airport. And, grassroots aviation is the gateway to get young people interested in aviation and recruit new pilots, which the industry sorely needs. And, when we build high walls and barriers to entry, the first recourse for many people is flying clubs. That's how I learned to fly. But at a certain point, even that becomes too high of a bar for people. So if there's interest, I would definitely look into a little more information about the clubs on the field, because I'm not personally equipped to answer the whole enchilada.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So if there is no one else that had intended to speak, this is an opportunity, Crystal, for you to come back and answer some questions. And I would like to ask a question, and I'm not sure who is going to answer it, but I noticed that we haven't increased rates since 2008. Needless to say, that's a long time to have not done a rate increase. And I'm not sure why we didn't do it before, but did the commission consider phasing in the rate increase versus doing it all at one time? And I understand the business plan, because I really was supportive of us and asked that we do a business plan, so I appreciate that being done. But was there discussion about phasing it in?
Give me 1 second to get everything back up. I'm an engineer, I really like PowerPoints. All right, so Mayor, to answer your question, the first is I don't know. I don't have the historical knowledge on why it's been 15 years since we've done a market increase. I will say that any market rate increases are very labor intensive. Also, not every airport that we compare to have city-owned hangars like we do, so it's very challenging to find an airport of similar size, of similar use, that have a similar amount of hangars in similar conditions to compare apples to apples. So it's very, very challenging, which is why one of our recommendations is to hire someone to do a full in-depth analysis on it. And then for the second question on phasing it in, no, it was not discussed at the commission. However, I do have some information that I'm going to talk to in just a moment, addressing one of the questions on why it likely wasn't. So I'm sorry if I didn't capture all of your guys' questions. I sure tried. We were taking notes and scurrying. So, but I do want to start to say, I am so proud that this entire group of people showed up with, like, every single one testified with a really good heart. I'm like, oh, man, we've got such good tenants. Like, we've got a good little airport. I'm just so proud of it. So the first, it was talked about quite often, the rate comparison, so who we compared it to. So I shared before the first 4 columns. Bend, Oregon is another one that we've added. Bend is similar in size to Nampa. It has a similar sized airport to us. They also have some standard T hangars that they own. Their rates are also higher than ours. Again, we didn't look at cost of living analysis to like try and get those scaled. We basically just looked at them across the board. For Boise and for the Provo, Utah, we recognize that their airports are in different sizes than ours and offer different amenities. We were not looking for airports of the same exact size and amenities as us. We were looking for airports that had city-owned hangars. We specifically pointed out T hangars, since I showed before the bulk of our city-owned hangars are T hangars, the standard T hangars. So that's what we focused on, trying to find an analysis to compare apples to apples. And as I said before, the Boise range, it goes up to 324, same thing with Provo. We took the lowest possible dollar amount for those to compare ours to when we did our 32%, saying that we were 32% below. So the reasoning behind that, again, they're a larger airport. Their hangars can be in different condition than ours. Some of ours are older, made out of blocks. Some of them have dirt floors. Some of them are really nice and have full walls and concrete floors. So it's very hangar dependent. So this was a graph that we showed in February, and it was the market rate analysis done for the leasehold. I know that both Weiser and Ontario were mentioned as airports that we should compare to. We did not put them on our original list because they don't own city T hangars, so we can't compare apples to apples. But in the Airport Business Solutions strategic plan that was completed, they were compared to that. And overall, they found that we were still below market rate. I will mention in February of 23, the average increase for land leases was 28.5-ish%. We're asking for a 30% increase. The February meeting did not include the 8% CPI increase. So if you're comparing February's to now, we're asking for a 24% increase, whereas the land lease got 28.5% overall. I will also caveat that the land leases, some of them are under current lease, so a lot of them won't see the increases until their lease is up, and then they have to renew. So that is a big difference right there. Does that make sense? Bruner's got a angry face on.
Yeah, well, how long are most of these leases? Are they multi-year?
They are multi-year. The land leases, they're normally 30-year leases. So I want to say we won't start seeing the big dividends from our February increase for like another 8 to 10 years for the bulk of them. Is that right? Whew, remembered something.
Thanks.
Okay. There was some comments as well that the first time that they're hearing about this was when we sent out the postcard. Like, that's very unfortunate, and we will actively work to improve communication. I will note that we did over-advertise for this public hearing compared to normal public hearings. We did a 3-week advertisement in Idaho Press Tribune. The required legal amount is 2 weeks. We designed and sent out a postcard to every single tenant to make sure that they got one personally, as well as we posted notices at all of the keypads to the gate. So if they came to visit their plane in the last 2 weeks, it was mentioned there. It was also brought up, obviously, during the February public hearing, which was another opportunity saying, hey, we're going to come back and look at this. And this has been an active discussion item at all of the commission meetings since June. So it's been out there, and we will do our best, again, to endeavor to let people know and get the communication out there, but we only do what we can. The commission meetings are also advertised on the city website and on the bulletin board in the airport terminal. They meet standard the second Monday of every single month, so it doesn't change. And the notes are also posted online for anyone's review. So we do what we can. It's not perfect yet, but we're trying, guys. We're trying. The next thing I wanted to address, or maybe give a little bit of information to, was the airport is self-sustaining. I will note it is not self-sustaining. We're sure working towards it because that's always a good business plan, but that's not the goal of this increase, is to make it self-sustaining. This is the fiscal year 23 airport breakdown. You can see the city general fund makes up about 17% of our overall income. How much does, maybe that's a Doug question. How much does the city give the airport in general fund every year?
I believe the amount was right around, I can't remember exactly, it's about $180,000 a year out of property taxes, give or take a little bit.
About right.
Could I comment on that, though? Doug, our intent has been that the sales tax, property tax, not sales tax, property tax revenue generated by the airport, we are putting back into the airport.
Yeah.
So to me, the real question is, are we supplementing above that?
Yeah, we
And
are.
how much are we
We
supplementing
are,
above
the
that?
property taxes, pardon me, the property taxes we receive are, I think, 20, 40,000 less, maybe a little more. They changed this year with the dynamics, but we have been for the last 5 years, I think, giving more of our funding to the airport than we've been receiving in property taxes. In some years, it's been as little as 20,000 a year, but it's been growing every year since that point in time.
Has to do with the change in the House Bill 389. And,
Right.
well, and actually, it's a homeowner's exemption that took commercial tax down, personal property tax up. So the commercial, it's one unfortunate side effect of commercial property tax going down is that the revenue the city is generating from the commercial leases actually has gone down. And so, unfortunately, it is what it is.
I think this year might be a very minor correction of the prior years because the residential valuations went down and commercial went up. That's the first time in 6 years that's happened.
So I guess one thing as a practice from this city council has been our willingness to commit that property tax revenue that's generated from the airport, give it back to the airport. I like the fact that we do that because the reality is you couldn't expect the full 100 and however much thousand that is. I want to say the deficit, right? It's just not going to be possible for the airport to make that up. So what's positive is that we're giving back what is being generated from. Now, what we'd like to reduce is actually the difference, right? Where we're having to subsidize now out of general fund with all property tax payers into the airport. So, and I might come to you when she's done because our public hearing's still open and I'm open to the dialogue. So go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. You'll note on this graph also, as far as land lease revenue versus our rental revenues, that we make more money off of our city-owned hangars than the land leases. I want to deep dive a little bit more into that. So this is a summary of our airport grounds for you. We have 249 acres currently at the airport. Land is our limiting factor at the airport. We only have so many square feet to do with highest and best use for the airport. Of that 249 acres, 44 and a half acres are the private land leases, so that makes up that 24%. And then only 10.5 acres are the city-owned hangars. And so looking at these comparatively, you can see we have a lot less space invested in city-owned hangars than we have private-owned hangars, and we're making more money off of them. So this graph, again, shows the same thing. So you can see square footage on the right, 89% versus 11% for the city-owned hangars, and we make 10% more in revenue than we do. So while our intent is not to price gouge or, step on our tenants or anything like that, we're trying to find the highest and best use for the airport per square foot. So our request at this time is to keep the city-owned hangars, do that future analysis, and then have that higher market rate to get us closer. I will also note the rate that we're requesting will not get us up to market rate likely. One of the reasons that we're not requesting that again is because our city-owned hangars aren't necessarily comparable to everybody else's city-owned hangars. Some of ours have dirt floors, and so we've attempted to compensate for that. Our analysis also on that was brought up a couple of times, and I'm going to super butcher this because Lindsay is the spreadsheet master. But I would like to just pop it up for a second. So this is very, very challenging to see, and I apologize. We analyzed each separate hangar right here. It's row O. Maybe I can make this a little bigger for you. And this can be available to any of our tenants as well. Please stop by the airport. We'd love to talk with you guys. Also, any of the council members that would like to know more about it, we're happy to deep dive into the numbers. Lindsay really geeks out about it. So the estimated sale price we used as a combo, and this was a range. This was our best guess at it, but we talked to the assessors and got comparable T hangars from other locations per square foot, as well as what we were kind of seeing buildings going for now, and then gave it a broad range. And then if it was converted to a land lease, our revenue over 30 years. So just looking at that first row, you can see if we sold the hangar, it would be $216,000 in capital that would go into our bank, assuming somebody would tear it down or turn around and rent it out as a land lease. We'd make just under $100,000 over 30 years on that. Versus the next three columns are if we kept it. So our revenue over 30 years is $325,000, so over 3 times as much revenue if it was a city-owned hangar. We did subtract out some estimated operating expenses that looked at the average cost per square foot of having to replace a roof or patch a hole in the wall or redo some of the doors. We also allocated per square foot the cost for any utilities as well as the salaries for any of our airport personnel. So those are just averages, so we subtracted that out. The last column shows the net increase. So you can see 30-year averages for that first one, we'd make just under $100,000 if it was a land lease versus $235,000 if it was a city-owned hangar. So it does depend what we would have to do with the capital. If we turned around and got a terminal building and bought one with it, if we invested it and tried to make a profit off it versus based on the rates, the market rates, as somebody suggested, it would be up to the will of the commission and the council at that time on how we spent the money. But hopefully that addressed most of the questions.
Mayor, you said you did not have the historical answer on the 2008, but you said I thought you were going to say you were going to dive into that a little bit, at least with an assumption. Did I mishear?
So the assumption that I said was why we didn't talk about phasing it in. So 30%.
Well, my question is, as the mayor's, I believe, was why there has not been an increase since 2008. I know you said it was a really intensive, study to get that done, but that doesn't, to me, make a whole lot of business sense to be 15 years out and not have any increases.
I can invite my staff up. Do either of you guys know?
I can tell you personally.
Okay, Councilman Haverfield.
The CPI increases.
With the CPI?
Yes.
Okay, so hang on.
We're kind of getting out of control.
Hang on just a second. So we have to stay within our public hearing guidelines. So
I can just say from
Thank
a
you.
personal standpoint, 2008 was one of the worst years I've had as a business because of where the market was. And it took about 4 years for it to climb back out of that to the point where we were at a 2006 rate, if we've even gotten there yet. So I would think the reason why there wasn't any rate increases is because of the market. Myself.
Thank you. Okay, so I have a question. I think what I heard was that there have been some increases. So, and I see a bunch of shaking heads, yes. So can someone speak to that? Monty, do you have that historical information?
I can speak to it.
I'm sorry, Monty, hold it. You have to come up and speak to the mic.
I can speak to that actually,
And,
Mayor.
okay, so go ahead and stay up here, Monty. And Crystal, thank you for answering the question, please.
So Mayor, Council, on the screen, I have summarized for the last 18 years all of the increases. The bold lines are the rental increases or the market rate increases, but what you're seeing every single year is that annual CPI increase. Almost every single year there has been one, minus 2020 and 2010, you see 0% increases in there. So as Monty alluded to before, while we don't know exactly why it's been 15 years since there's been a rate increase, They're not very popular, obviously, because it impacts our tenants, and we're trying to do what we can. Also, there are a lot of work to try and get the foundational knowledge in order to justify a rate increase. We don't want to just come and throw out a number. We want to have good, solid foundation for why we're recommending that specific number. Is there anything
I
else?
would just add that, yeah, from 2008 until 2016, maybe, nothing was happening at the airport as far as building, that type of thing. We had empty taxiways that the FAA had built for us, and they sat there for years without being built on. And just about maybe 6-7 years ago, building started again, and it's just been picking up speed ever since. So it just came to this where it's finally time.
Maybe I'm the only one sitting here thinking this, but when we say there hasn't been any increase, there has been an increase.
There hasn't been a market increase for city-owned hangars since 2008. There have been yearly CPI increases, and there have been market increases for the lease for the privately owned hangars.
Okay, could you define how you view the CPI different than a market increase?
Yeah, so the CPI is based on.
I mean, I know what a CPI is, but what do you consider to be a market increase versus a CPI increase?
So Mayor, the market increase that we're talking about is when we compare our rates to other similar airports around. So what the airport, like the entire
So a
graph
more
that we showed before.
significant
It's a more
increase to bring us
significant
up to a
increase
market rate is what you're calling a market increase, a more significant increase.
Yes, ma'am.
To get us up to a market rate. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
That helps. Okay.
So Mayor, Mr. Taylor,
Well, this other gentleman had a comment
Yeah,
in the
whoever.
gray shirt, and he hasn't spoken tonight, and so, yes, you. So I would like to call on him, while the public hearing is open, if you don't mind, and then Crystal, we'll probably have you come back again at Monty, because you guys kind of get the last comment. So I'd like the gentleman that is sitting in the back right here to come forward, if you don't mind.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Chris Droege. I am a hangar owner on the east side of the airport. There has been an increase in CPI every year, so there is increases that have happened since I've been there about 10 years or so. In addition,
Chris,
What's his
what was your address again?
Oh, I'm sorry, I live
That's
at
okay.
10311 Lakeland in Boise.
Okay, and
Garden
what was
City.
your last name again? How do you spell that?
It's D as in David, R-O-E-G-E.
Thank you.
In addition to that, each year that I've been a hangar owner, the property tax increases rather significantly. This year, my bill, my assessment is up over 50% from last year. And that money goes back, apparently what you're telling us is that money goes back from property taxes on the airport owners back to the airport. And I'd be the first to say that these people do a great job. I'd be the first to say that costs do go up. But I would also agree with these gentlemen that we can't price everyone out of an Idaho legacy. So I don't see the airport as a profit center, okay? I'm happy to pay my fair share. My hangar is currently valued at about $500,000, and it's a garage. It's one of the old ones. Significantly, it's a garage for an airplane. Okay, it's not one of these new spanky ones. So each year I have to come up with a little bit more money to pay for that. And, I'm like everybody else. I work, and I'm sure that the airport employees are paid well, and we all try to do our part. But my point is that there are increases every year, and the property taxes do come back to the airport fund. So,
Mayor, I'm not, if someone can help me with the assessment. You said your property assessment went up 50%.
It did.
So who is that the county that's?
the county.
The
It's the
county that's
county.
assessing that?
Yeah. And then unfortunately, some of the assessed values go up, but with commercial, the actual levy rate has gone down. So it doesn't mean that your taxes doubled, but your assessed value doubled.
I didn't say they doubled. I
Right,
said
your
they
assessed value.
Went up
looking at a
50%.
$500,000 assessment on a garage for an airplane.
Unfortunately, we don't control that, and I
My-
would
my
agree.
point- I'm sorry to
yeah.
interrupt. My point was that property tax money comes back to the airport. So we do pay more each year. beyond the CPI increase.
Great.
Okay?
Mayor Kling?
Yes.
And again, I didn't catch your last name, but
Mr.
the
Brody?
reason you live in Boise, and several of the people that have spoke tonight live in Boise, is there not available hangar space in Boise, or?
No.
Okay, so you have a dilemma in the fact that you've chosen Nampa because of maybe opportunity was able, you had it here at one point.
Well, I think that that's part of it, sir, but the other part of it is a well-run airport, and one more time, I think these people are correct in saying that some of us are trying to preserve an Idaho legacy for the kids and for ourselves, and I don't want to be priced out of something that's given me great joy. And I think we also have to take into account the millions of dollars that are produced by the airport and the periphery jobs that are here from that airport, the maintenance and everything. So
thank you.
It's
I have
not
some follow-up
it's an
questions.
abstract
Okay.
number. I get that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate your
Councilman Haverfield, Aaron Bear is here, and I wanted to call on Aaron. He hadn't signed up to testify, but do you mind coming forward? Aaron has been on the Airport Commission for, I'll let you tell us. And Aaron, go ahead and share your address.
Sure. Address is 2205 East LJ Court, Nampa. And yes, I've been on the Airport Commission for probably 6 or 7 years. And to address the first question of why wasn't the hangar rentals increased, I would say from our perspective, the airport had been pretty much self-sustaining for many years, and it has only just been recently in which the amount that the city has had to give the airport above and beyond the property taxes has been an issue. And as you know, Mayor, we commissioned a third party to come in and do a business plan for the airport. And it was through their work that they made recommendations for both the leases as well as for the rentals. And we first started with the land leases, and that took place in February, as Crystal mentioned, with the caveat that we would come back and address the city-owned hangars. And I can tell you that it was very clear from those who actually own hangars that they don't want to be responsible for completely covering the costs of the increases of the airport, and that it should be shared equally amongst the rental community as well. And I think, as Crystal pointed out tonight, the amount that we are raising or recommending raising for the rental owners is actually less than what the land lease folks got back in February. So I would say it's not easy for us to want to raise rates. It hits all of us. And so being at the nonprofit on the field, I mean, we also will be impacted by the land leases. And but we also recognize that Nampa is a growing community, and the space is at a premium at this point, and we have a long waiting list, and even the available spots for building are less, few and far in between. So we're just trying to keep up and really develop an airport that is self-sustaining as best as we can, and keeping up with the increase in costs.
Mayor.
Thank you for those comments. Go ahead.
Aaron, thank you for coming forward. Maybe you can answer a couple of questions that I was going to direct to Crystal later, so I don't have to hit her with all these questions.
I'll do my best.
Have you looked at a marketing study to see if these rates would affect those that are currently there? Or is there others? You say there's a waiting list up to 3 years. Are they Nampa residents? Are they Boise? I mean, is it still Valley residents? You think that by this increase that we would affect those that would be able to afford to be at our airport?
We don't believe so.
Okay. And then I asked about FAA best practice. Have you looked into FAA's stance as far as on ownership by a city, as far as on an airport, so that it's public or privately owned? Is there a best practice that's been made available by FAA?
I'm not aware of that, so I'd have to defer to.
Okay. And the last thing is staggered increase to rates was mentioned.
Monty just said that they're self-sustaining as possible.
The FAA's position, I think, would be as self-sustaining as possible.
kind of way they leave it.
So, and that was the intent, because actually I strongly encourage that we do exactly what we did, which was a business analysis. We did the master plan, but we really needed to understand this is a business model, and any good business model is self-sustaining. And so part of the reason we did this study was to look at how can we have a self-sustaining airport, because what you really want, and I heard the comment about the hangars that the people are fixing their own doors and part of a good business model is the renewal, that you can fund the renewal and replacement. And if I understand correctly, right now our business model does not support some of the renewal and replacement pieces of those hangars. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and so we've got to get to a place that the airport is self-sustaining enough that you can fund the renewal and replacement of those hangars, that whether it be the door repair, the pavement repair, whatever it is, that we have the revenue to do that. Otherwise, long-term, you don't have a great little airport. So so I think the goal in this is, what is that, I'm going to say happy medium. And I think that's, am I correct, Aaron? That's really what we were looking for when the commission was reviewing it and the business thing, would that be a safe thing to say?
Absolutely.
How do we do it is the question.
Yeah, we know that it's never favorable to raise rates, and that's an unfortunate part of this, but we also recognize the costs are going up, and we do need additional revenue for the airport in order to kind of hit that self-sustaining mark, so.
And we're looking at various models for additional revenue, right? I mean, I believe Crystal and Monty, Lindsay, right? We're looking for other revenue models, not just looking for this to be the save-all, right? This is just one piece of a broader business model. Is that correct?
I would say yes.
Mayor, and that's what I was trying to get to, is having it be a business model. It doesn't make sense for us to continue to subsidize the airport if we can get to a point where they can subsidize, or basically, same thing with the Idaho Center. That's been our goal, is to try to make them self-sufficient if possible, whatever that might take. And we have to make those difficult decisions. I think to Councilman Rodriguez's point, to Hubert's point, I think that's what we should have as a goal for this council, is to help them get to that point.
Okay.
Mayor, may I also just mention that as it's been brought up, the Airport Commission does meet monthly, and we would love to see more public involvement. We try and listen to comments and hear what people have to say. So I would just invite anybody to those meetings.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, any other comments, questions for Crystal? Crystal, do you have any closing comments? Did we allow you to finish? Okay.
Mr. Taylor had his hand raised.
Okay, Mr. Taylor, he has already spoken, but are we going to start a second round? I don't know. I'm
open to.
Okay, Mr. Taylor, come forward and make a quick comment.
So I have another question for Crystal then.
Then you have another question for Crystal? Okay.
His question.
Okay.
Oh. Yeah, I don't quite understand. So I would listen to all the comments there, and thanks for the presentation. I don't know if it was made clear, the rates have been going up every year, a couple of bucks, $5, $10 a year, so, because I believe I started out at about $150 a month, okay, and I'm up to $198 a month now. And Lindsay can probably, I don't know, verify that, or is it just, am I having another senior moment here? Okay, my memory. Okay, so there have been periodic rate increases, but nothing, this big. There was a period of time when our club just kind of did an informal inventory on the empty hangars because of this year-long waiting list that's up to 3 years now. When we discovered that there were 16 empty hangars, okay? And Monty, I think we told you about the empty hangars that were there. And as I recall, we were told that these hangars were rented, but there were no aircraft in them, and rented from out-of-state people. So we have Nampa residents that rent hangars, we have Boise residents, but we also have out-of-state people that are renting these municipal hangars. We're not opposed to rent increases, because we realize, like Chris said, things go up, so, but, just not a huge jump like that. Also, too, I believe, Chris, you can back me up on this or correct me. Those privately owned hangars, they pay commercial rates for electricity and stuff and water, not private home rates. And like Chris said, it's just a big garage. So, I mean, that is a cost. I know the previous owner of Chris's hangar, he moved out of his hangar in Nampa and built a hangar in Caldwell because of the lease rates were significantly lower in Caldwell at the time. And he was the one that told me that he was paying commercial rates. Okay. So.
And thank you. I think, unfortunately, we
Yeah,
didn't time
that's it.
this one, so we are at time.
I covered everything I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, Councilman Haverfield for Crystal.
Just a quick question, as far as on a rate increase over 2 years versus all at once. Have you looked at that analysis?
Councilman Haverfield, we did not look at phasing the approach at all. Our reasoning behind that initially is we want to be fair and equitable across all of the people, whether you are renting a city-owned hangar or you own a hangar and your land lease. So as Aaron mentioned before, we did a 28.5% increase in February, and so this was our goal of coming back to look at paying for the renters, paying for their fair share of it, which ended up being about 24% for our market analysis.
Thank you.
So, but 24% plus another 8%.
Correct, and the 8% is across the board, so everybody will see that.
Okay.
I was just trying to compare apples to apples. That 28.5 didn't include the CPI increase yet.
Okay, so we still have an 8% CPI coming in?
Yes.
And is that annually, every year now we have an 8%?
That's annually every year.
For everyone?
For everybody.
Okay, so over time, is that going to put us higher than our neighboring locations? Because we're only 2% less than the market rate that we decided. It was 32%. So if we go up 30 and then we add another 8%, then we're going to be higher than the others.
So Mayor, that 30% includes the 8%. So it's 24% for the rental hangars plus the 8%.
But next year, is it another 8% next year?
We don't have the data yet on that. It's produced annually, so we won't know until this time next year what the CPI increase. I would hazard to say it's probably going to be lower. 8% is the highest we've seen in the last 15 or 20 years. It normally ranges around 1.5% to 4%. Also, the analysis that we did not include the CPI increases for any of the others. So Boise, who we compared to, will likely go up this year as well, proportionately.
Just for clarity, so I understand, have we already approved an annual CPI increase?
No, Mayor, that's what we are asking for today as well. The market rate increase and the annual CPI increase.
So we would be agreeing to the 24% increase, the 8% CPI, and we would also be approving an annual CPI increase based on what the annual CPI is. It would be already approved. Is that correct?
So Mayor, we come back every single year to reapprove the new CPI increase. So we would just be asking for this year's 8% annual CPI increase effective October 1st.
Okay, you would be coming back for any other future ones. I just wanted to clarify that. Okay. And then Aaron Bear, you had, did she answer the question the way you understood it? From a commission standpoint, you'd have to speak in the microphone to answer my question.
Thank you, Mayor, for that clarity, because that's the concern I had was if it was for more than just 1 year. It sounds like it would come back before us each year.
Each year.
Yeah, she did. It's the CPI happens every single year, and it's usually could be 1 to 2 to 5%, but it's not the 8% typically. But we don't get those numbers until next year.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Hey, Mayor.
Yes.
Crystal, is the airport business plan, is that on the website for anybody to access that?
It sure will be.
I just think it would be a great idea because this is an awesome study. It's 119 pages. It was very, very well done. It's very extensive, and a lot of people were mentioning that Payette, Ontario, Weiser, other airports were not part of what was presented today, but there's a lot of data in there that do include those airports as well. So it's kind of very interesting to look at it and just kind of see all of the data. So it might be just worth everybody looking into that if you're interested, but there's just so much data there to back up kind of some of these points that people have been having questions about, so.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
So Natalie, as our liaison to the Airport Commission, correct?
Yes.
And you've said in these discussions, do you have any comments?
I just want to say that we kind of have the blessing of the Airport Commission, and they do a fantastic job. They are so well dedicated, and it was very universal, the fact that this was something that they felt that they needed to do. And then Monty and Lindsay, they're amazing. They run the airport. The culture at our airport is so far superior than other neighboring municipality airports. So we are so lucky to have them. It really, really is. I can tell you that. And you know, I mean, the conversations were so well. Everybody was very respectful, but universally, everybody kind of came up to the same decision. So having the blessing of them and knowing that this is what they feel is best to get them to the next level, to be more self-sustaining, they have my support for sure.
Okay. So with that, and I realize I did get a little bit into council discussion. Council, do you have any further questions for anyone before we close public hearing?
This is mainly a question time. After we close is when we may have a discussion.
We will
correct,
have
Mayor?
discussion,
So
yeah.
we can have some comments and.
Just once we close public hearing, any questions you could have towards
Let me
Crystal.
just say, now I'm sure it's been, what's the reason this huge CPI compared to other years and what we expect in the future years? You maybe I should have read that.
Are good, Councilman Brunner. Let me reshare my screen so I can pull it back up for you to look at. So you can see here, it shows from 2013 to, partial of 2023. It's a rolling average from January to December, so January 1st to January 1st, basically. Because we go a year behind for the next year, so we're using 2022's CPI increase for 2024's CPI recommendation. There was really high inflation. I do believe at last year's CPI increase, you said, hey, how come we're not using a higher rate because inflation's higher?
I can send a letter to President Biden to pay for this. So it's okay, thanks.
So you will likely see 23 is trending downwards. We likely won't see an 8% for 25's increase.
Okay, thanks. That's just a huge, which hasn't been historical.
Yep.
Okay. Unless there's any further questions outside of staff, I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. This is an opportunity now for council discussion. And Natalie, thank you for sharing your comments. And so is it, well, I put you on the spot. Your recommendation is to move forward with?
It is
the
my
discussion.
recommendation. I do want to say, I have a heart, I hear what you guys are saying. My dad owns an airplane hangar in Caldwell, so I sat in on their city council meetings as well when they went through this whole thing. Aviation's a huge part of my life. My dad's an airplane captain, or commercial airport captain. Oh my gosh, I can't speak. He is a captain. He flies commercially. Anyway, and so aviation's been a huge part of my life. I mean, I have a 15-year-old that's more eager to get a pilot's license than a driver's license. So I understand the art, the love, the passion for this. I do, I really do. But part of council, our biggest thing is budget, and that is something that we have to take seriously. And it's really hard when we have to decide what is self-sustaining, what's not, how we budget that money. And so I don't think that airport hangars, the people that own those hangars or rent those hangars, should be all that provides the funding for that, because we use our airport for so many different reasons. People fly in here from all over, they come in, they generate revenue for our city. There's just so many benefits to having an airport, and we're really lucky to have one. So I understand that it's not just the hangar owners themselves that should have to fund it. But to close us in on that gap a little bit, I mean, we've got to become a little bit more competitive, and I think that our commission agrees with that, so that would be my recommendation.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Mayor, and I wish I knew what it would take to be self-sustaining, but my recommendation is we do that over a 2-year period. I think this is just too much, too quick, and I know it's not equitable with the private hangars. I understand that with this huge CPI that's going to hit them already. So I don't know what the percentage would be, but I would totally be in favor of be self-sustaining, whatever that takes by 25. But I will not be voting in favor of this resolution as it stands tonight.
So if we were recommending, I think it was a 30% increase, you're recommending that you would do 15 this year,
Well,
15 next year?
or if you're going to do 20 and 10, you know, like I said, I don't know what it's going to take. I would be fine with the 20 at this point. I just would not be in favor of the full amount at this point, which would be 32% with the 8% added on to the 24, right?
Yeah.
I mean, my math was 24 and 8 is 32. Okay, so.
Okay. And the actual, I think the number, though, that I saw on the screen underneath was 30%. Is that
30.
correct?
32.
It should be 32 if it's 24 and 8, but the number actually said 30. It's 22% plus 8. So
Okay.
it was a 30% increase that was recommended.
Yeah, I flunked math, so I
Okay.
just thought I'd figure it.
Well,
New math or something.
Mayor Clay?
okay, yes.
You know, one thing that I want to tell our community is if you had the airport, just the buildings there, it wouldn't be anything. It's the people that's in it that make up the airport. It's the people that bring in our community services. It's the people that are making it go. And so I realize that we have market and then we have CPI, and to me this is a huge increase, and we expect our community to pay for that. Well, our community is the airport people. And I'm saying, well, if I was in that position, like you all have said, that you would definitely help, and it's okay for the CPI, but for this huge increase, it seems like we're trying to supplement the airport by market value or market rates plus CPI. Well, to me, that's just a play on words. The bottom line is it should be self-sustaining, but the bigger bottom line is you can't expect people to pay the full amount. I will not agree with this. I'm with my fellow Councilman Brunner to break it up and go from there, because like the gentleman says, he owns a $500,000 garage. This gentleman said, well, yeah, I do too. There's nothing there but 4 walls and a ceiling. Are we giving you the best we can give you for the price that you're paying? And it sounds like an old adage, you pay for a Colby steak and get a McDonald's cheeseburger. That's what it sounds like, and I think we're kind of wrong on that. But help us help you make it better for you. So I will not be voting for this unless there's another resolution.
Okay. Any other?
Mayor,
Yes.
Can we ask Doug, put him on the spot, what are your thoughts on the increase?
Let me gather my thoughts for a second, because it's not a simple yes or no question to do an increase or a decrease. Like you, I've got my dad was a private pilot, and I flew with him in his Cessna 210 across half the country, and he had his own hangar, and I enjoyed every minute of it. The challenge here is that it is essentially a business that needs to be managed. And you have choices in how you deal with cost increases. We're dealing with inflationary increases, both operational for the pilots and operational for the management of the airport. I think that the reality is that if you choose to approve this increase, the airport will adapt whatever you choose or not to choose. They'll either give one level of service or another level of service. But as with the city, we're trying to manage a small airport, but it's growing. And you can't grow something without occasionally having cost increase. I'm not in favor of overcharging or undercharging. I'm in favor of getting the exact right amount. So to my mind, a degree of increase is necessary to deal with the increased costs that are coming by. And I think that's probably more of the council's right to determine what that lift should be, the council and mayor. But some degree of increase is needed to deal with the increasing costs. I mean, inflation may be moderating, but the core inflation is still high. So we still have challenges to deal with, both operational, internal, and those that fly an airplane. So to some extent, I'm definitely in favor of an increase, but I think it's the council's responsibility to choose what that should be.
Thank you. Thank you. Any comments from this side? And if not, I think we're ready to go ahead and decide what that action is.
Mayor Kling.
Yes.
I'll weigh into, again, my father was a pilot as well, so everybody seems to have someone that's been in the air flying around. He was a helicopter pilot, but and I've served on the airport commission. Thank you for taking my spot, please. That was great to give me some time to do other things, Natalie. So, but serving on the airport commission has given me an insight into the airport operations, the people that run the airport. I appreciate the budget limitations that they work with annually. The work that they do is stellar. It's been stated. So thank you for what you do, both of you. And but I'll weigh in with a motion. I agree with Councilman Bruner. Maybe we should stagger the CPI increase over a 2-year period. Looking back on the historical CPI increases, if I were to look at a 3-year average, it wouldn't be 4%. But I'll make a motion to increase the CPI for this fiscal year 4% instead of the 8%, and then go ahead and increase the other increase to leave it at 22%. So that would be my motion.
So if I understand correctly, your motion is to do the market increase of 22%?
As requested.
As requested, and do a 4% CPI rather
this
than an
year.
8%?
Yeah, and then look at it again next year as far as what the CPI increase could be. Because it could drop back down to 4% next year, we just don't know.
Okay. Is there a second for that motion? Okay, so the motion fails for lack of a second. And so,
Mayor, we'll just keep throwing them out here probably for a while.
okay,
So, I mean, I will go with a total of CPI, I mean, a total of 20%. So that includes the CPI and the market, so a total of 20%.
Okay.
We want to break that down.
There's a motion on the table to do a 20% increase rather than the requested 30% increase.
I'll go for that. I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Now's an opportunity for discussion around that.
Mayor, if we don't approve this, then what happens for this year?
Make another motion.
What if
You have to ask.
what if this motion passes?
If this motion passes, then it's a 20% increase, not a 30% increase.
And Mayor,
And that's what happens for this year.
let me add an addendum on that. I mean, I want to make sure then next year, I realize I will not be a part of this council, so I can't make it, but I would want to make sure that this is self-funding in next year, whatever that takes to get there, with the notice of these renters, that would be the case, so. But 20%
So you're
this
asking
year.
for a phased approach?
Phased approach.
20% this year, 10%
And make
next
sure
year?
Yeah.
Mayor?
Yes.
Again, we're just in deliberation now.
Yes, we are.
We can't commit future councils to that type of a process. It would have to be an annual review and renewal amount, so.
That's a CPI annual review, at least.
Well, anything we do, we can't say that, because again, the goal, I think we've stated, is for them to be self-sufficient. That'd be great. Same thing with the Idaho Center, with the Civic Center. I mean, I think that's what our goal is, but at this point in time, we've been presented what the best practice is that they've been able to determine as far as in this. So that's why I'm supporting it in its general form, but not total form, so.
Okay. Okay, so a question, and so you do not support, you're saying,
This motion, yeah. I think it should be a little bit more.
okay. Okay, so I do need clarification. If this were to go forward, we need to separate the market increase from the CPI rather than a flat 20%.
So we'll do a 16 market and a 4% CPI.
Okay, 16 market, 4% CPI. What I don't understand is the difference, and maybe I do need during this discussion time for Crystal to explain the why behind the need for the clarification on the market versus the CPI. How does that impact different people?
Am I allowed to speak when it's
Yes, you are,
closed?
from that
Okay. Thank you.
location.
Thank you,
Yes.
Mayor. So the CPI increase affects everybody at the airport. So that's the rental for the city-owned hangars as well as the land lease, versus the market increase will only affect the rental hangars.
Because we already did the market increase for the land lease.
Yes, ma'am.
And they came in at 28%. Okay, so the CPI that we're voting on that's across the entire airport,
Yes,
right?
madam.
Okay. So that does it would almost be better to have these in two separate motions, to keep them separate, because they truly are separate, right? One is the market increase just for the rentals. The other one is the CPI that gets applied to land leases, rentals across the airport.
So Mayor, clarification, then that would be then a total of 36% for the private. You already did a market of 28%, correct?
Councilman Bruner, that would be correct, 28, since I, can math
And
now.
that does not include
28
the
plus
8,
eight.
that does not include the 8%.
That did not include the 8%.
So we're talking about a 36% if the 8% would pass with the CPI for the others. Okay.
That's correct.
So then you would stand true to your 4%.
So what I'm recommending then is a total of 32% for them, a 20 for the renters and a 32% if you add both.
Okay. Thank you for that clarity. Any further, yes?
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
So could we, before we do the vote, can we have that motion stated one more time?
Okay.
To make it clear for staff?
Gerald, do you have the clarity on your motion?
How I broke it down, if we don't want to make it a separate motion, it was 16% market, 4% CPI, and I guess I don't have a legal unless Todd wants to, as far as being able to phase that in and affect another year where we would be totally not subsidizing the airport as of 2025 fiscal year, 24-25.
I'll respond, Madam Mayor and Councilmember Bruner. I think what was stated is correct. That's certainly the intent behind your motion, but I don't think you can make a motion that would technically bind the next council.
It would be up to staff to come back reminding the council of what was said this year for next year. Yes?
And that's my concern, is I don't know that they can make that statement, that by 2025, they could be self-sufficient. They can't.
No, they can't. What I'm saying is that next year when this comes up, it's going to be important for staff to come forward saying that in August 21st, 2023, the council recommended that we did not take the full increase as recommended, and that the council at that time asked that we continue it this year, right? It just needs to come forward in the staff report. In the report, this council cannot commit, as you know,
It can't be a
anything for
binding
next
motion.
year. Right, it can't, right. It would just be the staff bringing it forward.
I think it's a call to vote. I don't think my motion's going to pass anyway, Mayor, so I think we can call it a vote.
Okay.
Just call for the vote.
If there's no further discussion, roll call.
Jingula?
No.
Reynolds?
No.
Haverfield?
No.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Bruner?
Yes.
3 opposed, 2 in favor, motion fails.
So time for a new motion.
Okay. What is the will of the council? Natalie, would you like to?
I will make a motion to approve as stated in the packet for the, all my numbers are all over the page.
22 and 8.
22%, and then the 8% CPI.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we
So that's
approve
what
the recommend,
they're asking for then? Okay.
what was recommended with the 22 CPI and the the 22% market increase and the 8% CPI. So that was moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Madam Mayor,
Yes?
just want to make a comment. So
the path that we're on, in my opinion, is a terrible business model. As a business owner, I look at that and I'm like, it's not sustainable. I don't believe we can get to self-sustaining in 1 year's time, and it would be a huge increase to get there. We got to start taking budget capacity now to get to self-sustaining in maybe 5 years, possibly. And if we don't do these things, we are going to have budget issues, just like we're already currently seeing on other departments in the city. So it's important to me that we take care of this and have a well-maintained, funded airport.
And Mayor and Councilman Reynolds, I totally agree with that. But what I was hearing from our distinguished man right over here, Doug, is that if we continue to turn over the property taxes back to the airport, I was only hearing an estimate of a $20,000 to $40,000 difference. And did I hear you wrong?
No, it's, you're very close. But the mayor pointed out something that I failed to, is that we're trying to make sure that all that we collect in property taxes, we give back to the airport. So that's the primary goal. We're not trying to subsidize the city with property taxes from the airport. But recently, since I've been there, we've had to add more to that to make the funding of the airport viable.
I was hearing 20 to 40,000. So I'm,
Yeah, and it's a little.
I'm taking that into consideration where this council, whether I'm on it or somebody else, it was going to continue to have that happen, that decision will be made. So I don't see that 5 years, Councilman Reynolds, even, I mean, $20 to $40,000, I can see that can be done in another year, in my personal opinion.
Well, but currently, we're not funding any renewal and replacement. We're not repairing, we're not upgrading.
Understand.
And somewhere we have to fund, we're just getting by. And you know what, you want to have an airport look nice 5 years from now and 10 years from now, and right now, it's not going to look nice if we don't start reinvesting.
No, I totally agree. I don't think the notice and the communication, and boy, Crystal does a super job at hitting these folks, I think was very, very short notice. I think I'm pretty confronted, those who don't know me, but you guys need to get to these monthly meetings and and let your voices be heard. That's where I don't have any reason to be able to scold you, but if I was going to scold you, that would be what it was on. You need to be a part of this for these folks that do such a wonderful job. But still, I feel like the notice was very, very short, and that's why I'm in favor of the phasing. So, okay.
Okay. Unless there's any new conversation, roll call.
Rodriguez.
No.
Brunner.
No.
Hammerfield.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Jingula.
Yes.
3 in favor, 2 opposed, motion carries.
Okay. That was a long public hearing, and I know it didn't go the way some would hope, but it is the decision. Thank you for taking time to come tonight. Really, really appreciate it. We did hear what you guys had to say. I know it's a difficult outcome for you, but thank you. I tell you, I just appreciate, we have an amazing airport. We want all of these different people to be there. It's so important. And so you've got an airport commission that meets on a regular basis, works diligently to try to figure out how to have a good airport as we move forward. So anyway, thank you so much, guys. Thank you. Thank you. We're going to move on. 8.2 was already done, and so we're going to move to 8.3. We have 2 more public hearings. And 8.3 is an action item. This is annexation and zoning to RS-12, single-family residential, with a potential development agreement and a subdivision short plat and subdivision waiver to the 20-foot landscape buffer requirement for the Dash Hound subdivision at 2111 South Happy Valley Road. This is for Vasilia?
That's correct.
Is that correct, Vasilia? Kalunga?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, representing Carlos Valdez. So our applicant is here, and thank you for sharing your name and address and introducing it.
I'm William Mason with Mason and Associates. Our address is 924 3rd Street here in Nampa. We're here for several items. This is actually a request for annexation and zoning, and also for a short plat with a request for a reduction in the required landscape buffer because of the location. So this project sits on the northwest corner of the roundabout at Happy Valley and Greenhurst. And there's an existing house there. The existing owner and his family want to subdivide it into 4 lots. They're going to be large lots, so there'll be an RS-12, which is 12,000 square foot minimums. We meet that. The area along the right-of-way is kind of limited because of the roundabout and the location of our access. So we've pushed our access to the development as far north as we can and still stay on the property. But if you can see with the existing conditions, we have to take a really hard south turn to get down into the subdivision and then place the houses on those lots. So the existing house will remain as one of those lots. And I think I'll either stand for questions. My client is here tonight, so if they need to answer questions, they can.
Mayor Kling?
Yes.
So will the landscape, there's no easement or there's no separate lot for the landscaping, is that correct?
There is a separate lot from the south side of the road. You can see the trees that go along the frontage there. So that area would be a separate buffer lot.
I'm just talking about as far as, you talked about the decrease as far as in landscaping is because of the sharp turn down through there, but is that portion of that drive lane a shared access for the 4 lots? Or is it on the first lot there, or is it a separate, is that landscape area a separate lot into itself?
So it is a shared, you're correct, it is a
So
shared.
there's a cross-access agreement.
Correct.
So are you taking into consideration then the square footage of that lot, being able to get it up to the 12,000 square foot?
I would have to look at that, but I believe that cross-access is included in that square footage.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sure there'll be some discussion about access and traffic right there. That's a busy roundabout, right? Yes. Yeah, okay, so I'm sure that'll happen, and Daniel, you'll probably speak to that. Are there any other questions for Mr. Mason?
Mayor,
Okay.
the only other question I was going to ask is is that a right-in, right-out access?
Currently, it's designed for a full access.
Okay. So if it were to become a right-in, right-out and not a full access, would that impede the ability to develop this subdivision?
I don't believe so, because if it did become right in, right out, they could go to the north by going down to the roundabout and going around the roundabout.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so Parker.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Parker Bodley, Planning and Zoning Department. I'll defer to Daniel with all the traffic questions, so I'll go through my piece and then we can turn it over to him. So yes, this is a subdivision, annexation and zoning, and then the waiver to the landscape buffer requirement. The landscaping is on a separate lot, as was pointed out. The surrounding area, county to the north, county to the east and west as well. To the west, southwest is Adams Gardens, and then to the south is All Pro Lawn Service. The county had a comment that this is zoned agriculture in the county jurisdiction. It was approved for a land division in 1999. There's irrigation easement at this location, 40 feet total, 20 feet on each side, and that's on the south side, south property line. This is 2.4 miles from Fire Station 2, 7-minute response time. And then the engineering comments about utility availability, right-of-way dedication, all those things that Daniel can cover. This is a low-density residential area in the comprehensive plan. RS-12 meets that requirement. The comp plan discusses single-family residential development opportunities. The applicant here is seeking to divide this land for their family, so that each family member will be on a separate lot here. A traffic impact study is not required here. Staff determined that due to the proximity of the intersection, site access limitation, that's could be reasonable to approve a waiver for a 20-foot landscape buffer in this location due to the site characteristics. This development is 2.23 dwelling units an acre, which is within the requirements, which has a max of 2.5. The minimum proposed lot here is 15,181, and then the maximum lot size proposed is 20,118, and those are within the range for RS12. Here's an overview comparing to the surrounding lots. The potential findings for annexation, this will fall under the Category A annexation and meets that requirement. It's kind of an interesting piece. The contiguous pieces to the south through the intersection, it's determined to be contiguous there. The development is determined to be compatible with the surrounding land uses. It's a low-density area. These are larger lots in the city eyes. It's deemed to be compliant there. Provides a set of uses that are reasonable compatible. Again, these are single-family detached homes and matches the surrounding land uses. Utilities can be made available here, so it's deemed to be available for orderly development, as well as in the public interest, as it provides more infrastructure and housing opportunities here. So should the council vote to approve, the recommended conditions are in the staff report. One to note out is the landscape buffer needs to be maintained by the subdivision. These little small subdivisions are hard to establish that because there's not necessarily an HOA to take care of that landscaped area. So we'll defer to the owners of that with the properties within those subdivisions to take care of it. It's a little easier here because it's a family and they are familiar, so they will be required to maintain that. A motion is there for you. I'll turn it over to Daniel, and you can go over some of those traffic items, unless you have any questions for me specifically.
Mayor, I do.
Thank you, Parker. Yes.
So Parker, when I look at the plat, Lot 1 is about 20,000 square feet. Lot 2, where the road comes across it, the majority of it comes across that Lot 2, which being pushed to the east there is what we're talking about, not being able to have the full 25-foot landscape buffer. That is Lot 3, correct?
The landscape buffer is in Lot 3, correct?
Okay.
So
my question is, Lot 2 is approximately 14,000 square feet. As it stands, Lot 1 is 20,000 square feet. Is there any reason why the common lot line between the two can't be shifted to the west, if that is to the left, to allow that serpentine road to be able to be shifted to allow the landscape buffer to be its full width?
Mayor and Councilman, Lot 2 has an existing house on it.
That's the reason?
Yeah, due to the width of the road required, that road will likely be at their front door if it's adjusted.
Is that the only lot that has a current structure on it then?
Correct.
Okay, and that's why they're asking to be able to do that?
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Are there any other questions for Parker? Okay. Parker, thank you. Daniel?
So Mayor, Council, from an engineering standpoint, we don't really have any concerns here. It's 4 residential units. The access location is compliant with the city's policies for access management. As we looked at it, the only concern that I recall coming up I don't remember if it was planning and zoning or some internal discussions, was when the railroad arms obviously go down, whether the residents there would be potentially trapped and not be able to get out of their driveway. But because of the location of that driveway on the west side of the road, that would not be stacked up, and they would be able to go south and head west on Greenhurst. And so we don't have any concerns. I don't envision this area to ever restrict down to a right-in, right-out. It's possible at some point in the distant future, but I don't envision it. I don't honestly see that that's a likely scenario, even in the future condition.
So, yes, Councilman
I was
Haverfield?
just looking at this aerial view. There seems to be another home directly to the north that is sharing that same entrance. Is that correct?
That is currently, they butt up right against each other. It's not necessarily a shared access. It's just how it was developed in the county in the past.
So from a safety standpoint, you don't feel that a restricted access would be important then, due to the number of homes?
I do not see that we would need to have a restricted right-in, right-out access there for the volume we're talking about.
Okay, thank you.
So are we the ones that are requiring this road to be built to go up north like that for an access point?
Yes, we would not. Their current access point, you can see where his cursor is. That's the current access point. And as part of this process, I don't remember if you guys submitted it that way or through our discussions, we required it to move as far north as possible from the roundabout there. But that's where it's compliant with our policies.
Well, if it's currently an access point, I guess because of the annexation, they're having to move. To me, it seems like it's much better just to leave it right where it is and not to pull the road clear back into that property, especially even if we said, no, you've got to go right in, right out, and they just go to the roundabout and go around.
The difficult part with doing a right in, right out there is the only way to truly restrict that would be a median. That would infect not only their property, but the adjacent properties on the other side of the road that are not part of this. And at that point, the only way to get into the development would be from the north. So you can go south and then head north very easily, but then coming to get in, making a left in would be, you'd be stuck coming from the north and potentially being a mile out of, and so without a true need for that, it's not something we would recommend.
Okay. And the party actually agreed to that? The parties you're working with have agreed to that? Okay. All righty. Thank you. Any other questions for Daniel? Okay. This is a public hearing. Do we have anyone signed up?
No, we do not, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Is there anyone here that had intended to testify on this particular matter this evening? Seeing none? Mr. Mason, do you have any closing comments?
Unless you have questions, I don't.
Okay, so no closing comments. Council, do you have any other questions for the applicant? Okay, seeing none, I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Council discussion?
Mayor, I'm just going to make a motion, if you don't mind.
If there's no council discussion, that would be fine.
Mayor.
Is there any council
I
discussion?
do have some questions. I wanted to just get clarification on the development requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Unless you have that covered.
Go for it, if you want to do it now.
I was going to go back to Parker.
Thank you.
What were we looking at as far as for a development agreement, information that you need from us? Anything? Fencing?
Mayor and Councilman, It doesn't necessarily have to have a development agreement because there's a plat tied to it. Unless there's special conditions that you are requesting.
So this only because if we wanted to add something, nothing that you needed assistance with?
No.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay,
You good?
thank you. Okay,
Okay. So I move to approve the annexation and zoning to RS12, single-family residential zoning district, subdivision short plat, and subdivision waiver to the 25-foot landscape buffer requirement for Dosh Hund subdivision at 2111 South Happy Valley Road, for Basilia Colunga, representing Carlos Valadez. Did you like that? With all conditions listed in the staff report, waive the 25-foot landscape buffer requirement and adopt the proposed findings of approval as stated in the staff report.
Second.
it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Brunner,
Yes.
Gula,
Yes.
Hammerfield,
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes,
All in favor, motion carries.
Okay, there you go.
that was easy.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to move on to 8.4 on the agenda. This is an action item. This is annexation and zoning to light industrial for .74 acres at 225 North Happy Valley Road for Blake Wolf, representing CCH Group Incorporated. Good evening.
Good evening.
How are
Thank you.
you?
My name is Blake Wolf. I live at 843 West Horizon Way here in Nampa. Pretty straightforward request tonight. This parcel qualifies as annexation and rezone to light industrial. It is contiguous to light industrial to the north. And that's what we're asking for tonight, for a small office warehouse building that I will eventually build for the owners. Kind of a hodgepodge area of town with, it's developing, starting to develop, coming south off airport, but very slow. But as we know, everything north of that is kind of booming. But right around here, it's mainly just single families on about an acre in the county. There's no intent to want to subdivide this parcel. There's no sewer quite yet, so we're just utilizing individual septic for our plumbing. As far as our neighborhood meeting, really no opposition, just some couple curious neighbors. Happy to see it cleaned up. It was a very rough house that we were encouraged to not even go into. And some RVs and fridges out front, so they're happy that it's all cleaned up now. The intent is to build a office warehouse that's very versatile, that can handle the owner's business, which is a warehouse and distribution where they'll be receiving occasional shipments, so easy access off the Happy Valley. And then they also wanted it to be very versatile if they were to ever sell it or lease it to the trades. It's a very tough type of product for the trades to buy. That's not on a huge parcel or that's so small that you can't get your equipment in and out. And this is about an acre. This one's 3/4, but that's kind of the sweet spot, and it's been very hard to find. So that's our intent. Yeah, that's all I got. If you got questions.
Mayor?
Yes.
Blake, does this property front on Airport Road at all?
No, it does not, Councilman Haverfield. It's just Happy Valley.
Yeah, in the proposed conditions of approval, it indicated a dedication of 25 feet right-of-way along Airport Road, but
That would be an error.
Yeah, okay. So it's just North Happy Valley then?
Correct.
Is that a 100-foot right-of-way then, as far as for Happy Valley?
Okay. Yeah.
Thanks.
I can't remember the number.
Okay.
What the width of that.
That's what's in the packet, but then that was a part of that other description that wasn't accurate either, so.
Okay. We'll get clear.
Whatever it is, it is.
Rodney will get clarification on that.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thanks.
Rodney?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. For the record, Rodney Ashby, Planning and Zoning Director. And I'll just jump right into that question because it's probably one that you've all noticed. So the original request from Engineering Division, we got a memo that stated that there was right-of-way necessary on Airport Road. That's because this originally came in with the property to the north. And I think that they just misunderstood where those connections were and where they would be accessing this property. So since that time, I've removed those statements from the PowerPoint presentation because that was clarified. So the staff report will reference Airport Road multiple times, but the PowerPoint does not. So you can see the property here. Let me get a little closer view there. There's the home that will be demolished. And then the Planning and Zoning Commission on July 25th recommended approval as proposed, except without the Airport Road. So based on the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation, the facts of the case, the project appears to meet all the requirements and staff would recommend approval. There's the history. I'm going to go through this fairly quickly. I've got a lot of data in the staff report. Working with our attorney, we've been asked to provide a little more detail on the findings of fact and conclusions of law, or the reason statement in state code. And so we've done that, and our presentations are going to be a little bit different. Those staff reports, of course, are a little bit different because we're providing all that background for the decision now. But I'm going to skip over quite a bit of it tonight unless you direct me otherwise. Traffic, again, just the dedication of Happy Valley Road, 50 feet from section line, so it is a 100-foot right-of-way along Happy Valley. And then here's the correspondence we received. And the recommended conditions, again, number 1, I removed the comment about Airport Road. Building department standard comments, NAMPA code compliance, they were concerned about all the weeds there, and there's a condition that I placed on the project to address that. Okay, so here's the comprehensive plan. It's well within industrial. It's also, the hatch marks are showing the airport overlay district. That's to encourage industrial rather than residential near the airport. And that's all described in the comprehensive plan and also talks about the types of industrial that we want to see there. Here the zoning is, a little closer view. You can see industrial to the north, and then, of course, the single-family large lot subdivisions in the county.
Here. Rodney, that parcel to the north is annexed?
It is annexed, yeah, and that was back in 2021. That was annexed and partly developed, but not completely yet.
That was my next question, is what is it? Because it's just been bare dirt for a while.
It was actually a light industrial. It was a light industrial building,
Similar
but I don't
to
know that it's
Louisville.
moving forward right now. They've got their sidewalk in,
Yeah.
but it maybe has paused.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So here's a site plan. You can see the access where the buildings will be laid on the site, their landscaping improvements, setbacks. I've listed all the details there in our code on the left, all the zoning regulations. And then here's the site showing the utilities. The irrigation is not actually available in this location. The property to the north put the irrigation line in when it becomes available. So this property would have access to it if it were to, that property to the north were to develop and get access to irrigation. I've done a full analysis of the comprehensive plan for compatibility reasons. The comprehensive plan talks about how to make industrial compatible with residential, and we have specific things in our code that are required, such as setbacks when they're next to residential they're sometimes unique for industrial next to residential. Okay, so here's the findings that we have to find tonight. The first one is for annexation, and pretty simple here. The conclusion is that it falls under Category A annexation, and the property owners have consented. Oh, I missed the last one. It's contiguous to the north. Would make a change on the land use map of the city which would establish an area of zoning compatible with immediately adjoining districts. Based on the comments in the comprehensive plan that I have in your staff report, I find that to be true. The proposed map amendment is or would provide for proposed use or set of uses that would be at least reasonably compatible with the adjoining property uses. Again, because of the zoning code, the protections we have for residential, the setbacks we have, and in addition, the design review requirements for industrial, I find that this is found to be true. The area can reasonably be assumed to be available for the orderly development of the city. There are utilities available close by, and there's other services close by, but some of the utilities will still need to be brought to the property, but it's expected that in the near future that will happen. And it's in the interest of the public and reasonably necessary. I think it's very clear that we have stated we want industrial in this area, and it's near the airport, so it would support those airport uses. Here are the recommended conditions. The first one is that 25 feet of right-of-way, and then I'll just point to the last one, number 5. All code compliance violations shall be resolved prior to annexation of the property, and essentially the applicant will need to contact the code compliance officer to let them know that they're completed. They've addressed all of their concerns, and then to request that they contact me so that we can finalize this annexation. And code compliance talked to me about that and said that's their acceptable approach. And here are a couple of potential motions for your consideration. I'd stand for questions.
Mayor Kling.
Thank you, Rodney. Yes.
So Rodney, I guess what we're approving tonight is for them to be annexed and zoned to IL, but there's no requirement at this point until they start developing for them to bring utilities to the property. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's correct. At time of development, they'll need to have the utilities.
So they can clear the site, get rid of any houses and wells and septics on it.
And I should clarify that. It doesn't necessarily have to bring utilities to the site if they're not available within the near area.
They can't build a building on there utilizing what services are already on the site.
Unless they go with septic and a well.
Didn't this say that they have to be abandoned?
It just means that when they become available to the site, that they will have to give up their rights for the well to the city.
So they can apply for a building permit utilizing the services that are on site.
Correct.
And then when city services come, they have to at that point connect?
When they fail, and they are then
Rodney.
required to connect.
So Mayor, Councilman Haverfield, city water is currently available at the site. It is in Happy Valley. The irrigation has been extended to the south. The sewer that is just to the north, however, is pretty shallow because of rock and decisions that were made before I was involved of allowing some sewer elevations to be raised. So that's why this property will utilize septic, but it will be on city water and irrigation.
Okay. And that was my question. I know when we looked at the hangars out there on that end of the airport, the depth of sewer was quite shallow.
Right.
And being able to get a connection. Mr. Reynolds would be he'd be hard pressed without a force main to get something going that direction.
Yeah. So if septic fails in the future and sewer is available at that time, then yeah, they'll have to pull it to the site.
How many employees are anticipated to be in this location?
I'll let the applicant speak to that, maybe on the,
Okay, maybe in closing?
yeah.
Okay. And then one other question, do they have to adhere to the design review standards of our current industrial area? Due to the size of this building, do they still have to adhere to
They
design
still have to
standards?
adhere to it. Mhm.
Okay, good, thank you. Any other questions for Rodney? Thank you, Rodney.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a public hearing. Do we have anyone signed up?
Madam Mayor, we do. Our speaker is Lynn Sorensen.
Good evening, and thank you for sharing your address with us.
Lynn Sorensen, 4606 East Oak Street. I'm right bordered the property we're talking about to the south, 3/4 of an acre. I've been there for about 20 years. And anyway, I was concerned about a little bit of the history, then I'll go back why I'm concerned, and the ability I have to see why I would be concerned. I was a farmer 20 years when I got out of college, worried about water erosion and where it goes, what happens to the ground, all that. Went into landscaping for a lot of years, built retaining walls, dealt with water erosion problems with water drainage. And then I was a forester for City of Caldwell for 5 years. And part of my job is to look at properties to see what we could do with planning and what happens with erosion and the abilities of hillsides, parking lots, this type of thing. And so the property right now was almost abandoned for 20 years, a lot of dirt. When it rained, a lot of moisture would soak in the ground pretty fast. My property sits below, probably about a 3-foot elevation below this property that we're talking about. I have a concern, and I did when I was working with Caldwell. When you go to industrial parking, it's how big the building is. Are they going to have a lot of grass around it? Is there going to be gravel? Is it going to be pavement? These are things that I don't know if it's been addressed or not. The thing about it is when you have runoff, where we're located at, where's the runoff going to go? We put in storm drains, we put in retaining ponds, we did all this type of thing. On this property, I don't see anywhere where the water's going to go except my property, which can wash the embankment out, go in the back of my house and my garage and the shop, and I'm really concerned about this. Like I said, there's no storm drains. It's by itself unless, and I don't see where the water's going to go except for the back of the property, which goes on another homeowner's, my property, or the property to the north. But there's no storm drains, there's no retaining, there's nothing. So where's the water going to go? And that's what I don't know. And that's why I'm concerned about how big the building is and how much pavement's going to be and where's the water going to go. And if the water does go, it's going to wash my bank out, go into my shop and my house, and I'm concerned about that. So, and I don't see any really plans of that. It should be a retaining wall behind my property to retain the water from coming from their property onto mine. So as far as drainage goes, I don't see where it's going to go, except for, you know, because when you build a commercial building versus a home has a lot of grass, trees, and everything else that sucks in and pulls into the ground. You go commercial, and then it all depends on how much hard surface is involved. So anyway, that's what I'm concerned about.
Thank you. Thank you for coming tonight. We appreciate it. Thank you. Okay. Is there anyone else?
No, there is not, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Is there anyone else here that had intended to testify this evening? Okay, seeing none. Blake, thank you for coming back. And if you could address this question regarding the amount of pavement, and I guess in my head I'm thinking, what kind of fencing are you going to be using to protect that property? And then obviously the storm drain issue.
Fencing is existing. They have a nice cedar fence, and we can work together if that needs to be adjusted or changed. Our site will be fully engineered with my civil engineer who does this all the time, does a lot of projects in Nampa. The water will most likely be retained in a pond directly west of the building is what I've been told is where it's going to be designed. There will most likely be some diversion type of gutters and catch basins, possibly under the pavement where it can also be retained. There is some landscaping where we can retain it. Yes, you do have to get creative on these small sites, especially when you're putting a lot of cover on them. But from my experience, especially with my civil engineer, he's very good about capturing stormwater. That's it's a big part of these small parcels, and it's what I do a lot of my developing in is these 1 to 5 acre parcels, and that's like one of the hardest things to figure out and where do you store it, and they have standards they have to keep, and they go through Daniel's department, and yeah, I don't know how to assure the property neighbor any more than that, and the council, but we do have a civil site plan that's already nearly done, so that's my best answer to the concern. And I don't believe it's legal for us to just let our stormwater run off onto the neighbors. So part of a new development is to be able to capture that and to retain it and to store it and to let it seep. So Rodney briefly mentioned that this does get design review at a staff level. All industrial type products do. So they'll be looking at our frontage, our parking, our site, and then obviously the utilities and the storm will go through Daniel and Peter and Caleb's department to make sure it does not run off. So any more questions?
Councilman Haverfield.
Blake, is this the proposed layout site plan that we're looking at on the screen?
Yes, we had some setbacks that were off a little. I can't read it. But generally speaking, this is how it's going to look.
Okay, so Mr. Sorensen has the property directly to the south of this?
Correct.
Is it a residence or is it a business?
It is a residence with a really nice shop that kind of fronts Happy Valley.
So is there a landscape requirement between this development and the residence?
Running east to west?
On the south side of the property, abutting their parcel?
I don't believe there's any requirements.
And maybe that's a question for Rodney to answer.
Yeah, that would be through his.
Yeah, I'll bounce that off of him, but I was wondering if this was the proposed layout, and if it is, I just didn't see a landscape buffer between the residential property and the industrial. So.
Yeah, you're correct. There's nothing shown on there, and I don't know, just off the top of my head, what that requirement is.
Do you know what
and
the
if there
depth of
is one.
groundwater is as far as on this parcel? That would answer.
What was the question?
Depth of groundwater. Has there been a soils report done on the property?
Yeah, we just dug our soils. We got down to 12 feet, and
Okay, so you've got plenty of place to
yeah, and
store
it was
water.
very sandy at about 6 feet. So it should drain very nicely after you're punching through the hard pan.
Yeah, the EPA would require you to contain all stormwater on site anyway, like you mentioned, so that would answer any concerns that the neighbor would have. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you so much. Okay, if there are no other questions for the applicant, I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, council discussion?
Mayor?
Yes.
I would have a question for Rodney as far as on the separation between industrial and residential, buffering between the two. Fence on the property line is one thing. Landscaping is required, I believe.
Thank you.
That's correct. Mayor and council, there is a buffer required, and I'm trying to find the exact distance. It's in the staff report. And give me a second, I'll see if I can find it.
So Randy, what you're looking for is that there is a landscape buffer that is required between the commercial and the residential.
Yeah, normally it's a 5 or a 10-foot landscape buffer so trees can be placed.
Mhm.
And I didn't see it in this site plan, so that's why I was asking the question. It appeared that there was a couple of parking spaces planned along the south side of that office building or industrial building.
And while he's looking, I just want to say, to me, there should be a development agreement. In the development agreement, it addresses the working with environmental compliance to ensure, I know that they have to retain all stormwater on their property, but that it's put in the development agreement. That it's understood that they need to work with environmental compliance and to ensure that no runoff affects the neighboring property and that they have identified a storm drain
That's part of
solution.
the civil planning
Mayor.
that'd be done by their engineer.
That is not done by environmental compliance. That is part of the building permit review process that
Okay.
engineering reviews.
Okay, so you will, okay.
Yep.
Does that, I guess I want to make sure that it's in the development aid, do we
That
need
is-
it?
That is city code and in adopted policies. It's not something we need a special condition to make sure
Okay.
happens. It's part of the existing process.
Okay. I just want to make sure we protect the adjoining landowner and that it's required.
Yeah, Mr. Wolf made the comment that a civil plan is in process. And if the civil plan is in process without that buffer along the southern property line abutting the residential, that would be my question to our staff, what's being allowed?
So this isn't a final concept drawing that he submitted, but when the permit comes in, we'll review all of those things, and they'll have to comply with 1019A1 of our code, which says landscaping adjacent to residential districts, all sites having a common boundary property line with residentially zoned property shall have either or both a 6-foot to 8-foot high site obscuring fence or a view obscuring coniferous evergreen green belt of shrubs, trees, and native vegetation not less than 6 feet in height nor less than 10 feet in width.
So is that requiring a landscape strip or not?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Unless they do a wall or a fence.
Okay. That seems, okay. That's not the way I remember it, but if that's what you're reading.
And Madam Mayor, I thought there was also, Rodney, that there was already a fence in place. I thought that was
Where's the
testified.
The cedar fence, if I understood correctly, the cedar fence is the property of the current landowner to the south. And so, but this would actually be a requirement of the new property, right?
That's correct.
Right. In addition to that fence, I think what we'd ask is that they work with the property owner to the south and identify what the right solution is that would be amenable to both.
That's correct.
That's it. The public hearing's closed, but you can talk to Rodney. You can visit with Rodney. Yeah. No, it's this side right there. That's where the cedar fence is. This property owner to the west isn't here. So he,
just went to the south.
just that one. Mhm.
There's a fence there.
Part of the development agreement might be the addition that, the language that would describe a landscape buffer, not just a fence.
That's what I'm thinking, and I would like to actually include in the development agreement, even though it is part of building the storm drain, just to protect the adjoining property owner, so that they know that we've addressed it in the development agreement.
It doesn't sound like there's an issue with water beneath the
Groundwater.
soil. So the fact that you've got down to 12 to 14 feet, no moisture at all, they could easily put in a retention area subsurface on the west side of this that could gather all of that moisture and contain it. And then if necessary, they could even add another subsurface drain area underneath the asphalt as well.
To the west,
To the east.
to the east.
We put them under parking lots all the time as well.
Okay. Well, I just think that would be wise. So,
Is the cedar fence part of our code, our new code? Cedar
no.
fence?
Mm-mm. It's just it's existing, but I don't believe it is.
We don't have to change it
Industrial.
then?
Well, no, because it's the property owner to the south that has the cedar fence, not the.
Where's our motion at?
So Randy, would you be making a
I'd be happy to. I'm
Thank
ready
you.
to.
You're ready to? Okay, just to ensure that we have the development agreement in place. But let's hear from Rodney very quickly, please. Thank you, Rodney.
Yeah, Mayor, again, it's just concerns about drainage primarily, not so much about the landscaping. If they had landscaping, there's a potential of irrigation runoff there. But the biggest concern he has is just that, keeping the water on their property, and he's just suggesting that they put a berm there to prevent that from happening. So there's some potential to work with that concept plan, and I think that the concerned citizen is going to be working with the applicant to try to come up with a good solution there.
Thank you. Okay. I think we're ready for a motion.
I will defer to my co-counsel.
Okay?
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the annexation and zoning to IL zoning district for 0.74 acres at 225 North Happy Valley Road for Blake Wolf, representing CCH Group, Inc., with all conditions listed in the staff report, and to adopt the proposed findings of approval, and also to have a development agreement, in the development agreement stating that the stormwater will be retained on site, and a buffer in the way of a berm or a fence will be discussed and agreed upon between the property owner and the developer.
Mayor?
Yes.
First, Rodney?
Okay.
Just one thing is that in the staff report, we had the 25 feet for the airport road. So you referenced the staff report in your motion, and I would recommend we just change that to exclude the airport road right-of-way dedication.
Thank you. Do you want to?
Agreed.
Yes. Okay.
Mayor,
The
if I-
motion wasn't up on the front here, so that's why, but go ahead.
I might as well. The condition that the stormwater be retained on site is a good requirement. But I do usually caution you about saying the landowners have to agree to something, in that puts the control in the neighbor instead of compliance with the city's condition. So I just suggest we not use the condition. There's an agreement simply that stormwater be retained on site. They can work together how best to do that, but that's a better condition from an enforceability and a due process standpoint.
Well, the agreement was regarding the landscape buffer, a berm versus whatever. The storm drain was a definitive comment, if I understood correctly. There's no agreement on the stormwater, it has to be done. But then the landscape buffer, however that treatment was done, a berm or, how did you word that? So what you're saying is that they don't have to, we shouldn't make them agree to it.
Correct.
It needs to be done.
Right.
However
Okay.
you want to word that, but it sounds like there's already that condition or requirement in
Okay.
code as far as the landscaping or separation. But I just don't want to put an approval based on the adjacent property owner's concurrence.
Okay. So how do we word that?
So do you want, let's see, in the motion, we could just do a landscape buffer in the shape of a berm will be required. 6 feet wide? 6 feet wide.
A 6-foot wide landscape
Landscape berm
berm be provided on the south side of the
on the
property.
south side of the property.
Okay? Is the motion? Okay, it's been moved and seconded.
Just a question, 6-foot wide berm, so we have a height requirement or anything on this berm?
28 feet tall.
Rodney, what is a normal berm? When we say berm, I've seen all kinds of heights of berms, so I'm just curious.
Yeah, we've got some standards we've used for other properties, and I think it's a 2-to-1 ratio.
So I would say if we're talking about a drainage berm and not a buffering berm, it can be as low as 6 inches and still accomplish what we're talking about. So I don't know that I would say it necessarily needs to have a height.
I'm just curious.
I would just
yeah.
say a berm that retains the stormwater.
So that would be the purpose rather than just okay.
And I would even possibly suggest a berm or other physical impediment. You could easily have on that side a 6-inch vertical curb and gutter that will handle that a lot better, easier than a berm, and accomplish that without the need for maintenance. A berm, if there were too much water for some reason, it can erode a berm and that, whereas a 6-inch vertical curb, you're not going to have that problem. So that might be something to consider of a berm or other physical improvement to retain the water on site.
Yeah, plus that would save Blake's back from hauling a bunch of dirt, so I like that idea, curb, where it doesn't have to be a berm, right?
They can still do a curb. I mean, we're not trying to define what they're going to do.
Well, I thought that was pretty much.
Landscape buffer is.
Well, I was hearing a berm was going to be required. That's why I was.
Well, that was stated, but I think the civil engineer, if he's doing his job, he's going to slope water away from the property lines, not towards the property lines.
Right.
So they're not putting in a swale. If you put a berm along there, it's going to be grass covered, most likely, with some trees. That's, I guess, what I was envisioning when I seconded the motion, was a buffer that's landscaped.
So you're talking about landscape rather than the retaining the water.
No, I wouldn't retain the water. The water would be retained in a subsurface bed on the west side of the property or on the east
So
side.
you're just adding another condition to the development agreement.
I'm just creating a buffer between industrial and residential. That's a landscape buffer. That was what
Okay, and there's a fence already there, okay.
There's a fence that's there, but that's not going to shade the buildings or the parking lot.
Right.
Trees do.
Okay, do we need clarity
Yeah,
on
just-
the development agreement? I think
Just
we may.
the intent, Darrell, is to, was what I was thinking, was to give the homeowner some privacy with the landscape berm, and then the stormwater will be retained on site. We do these projects all the time.
Okay, and I don't want to
We
get.
have to do it.
yeah,
We're
not-
just stating that.
Yeah, I don't want to get, if there's already a fence, I mean, the privacy is there, so a berm, that's why I was asking, that was why I was being a little facetious on the height of the berm. I mean, if you're looking for privacy from a berm, you're going above 6 feet.
Well, Mayor,
The fence is
also,
already
I
there.
understand the neighbor correctly. He was worried about landscaping being there because water could run off into his property if there's water on that side. I don't know if I got that wrong, but I think that was a concern. So if we're putting it in the condition that there should be landscape there, that goes against what our neighbor was asking for.
Well, we're totally off base here because what we have is a requirement by code to provide a landscape buffer between residential and industrial to provide privacy. The fact that there's a fence there doesn't take away the ability to put in landscaping to provide buffering, to provide shade, provide separation. When you have asphalt right up against the property line, then that's no different than a parking lot next to a residential house. So that's what the whole intent is. So what I'm used to working with, as far as when I design a site plan, is to provide a landscape buffer, especially between residential and industrial or residential and commercial, to provide that buffering and softening of the facade. So you're not looking at the side of a building, you're looking at trees that break up that building that's on the property that's industrial. So we're talking about semantics, and that's why I was looking for help from Rodney, because we have ordinances in place that speak to that. We're getting into the weeds about, water going off the property.
I'm not concerned with the water. I mean, that's going to be taken care of.
Yeah, the water is going to shed back into the center. That's required by the EPA.
So basically, all we're trying to do is ensure that the adjoining, that none of and as you said, it's already done by code,
Right.
that there is no water affecting the adjoining property owner off of this site. And so basically, in our development agreement, we could just say something as straightforward as we ensure that they're in compliance with all rules and regulations related to containment of water on the property to ensure that no water from the adjoining property affects the neighboring property to the south. and that they adhere to all other, the 6-foot, whatever our landscape buffer is.
So Mayor, just for the council's understanding, when you design a site to retain moisture, it's for a 25, 50-year event. So what we see as far as the amount of water that comes out of the sky that lands on that property, it has to retain that amount of moisture on its own surface, not to allow it to go elsewhere.
Right.
Unless there's a storm drainage system, which there is not in this.
Mayor, I'm
In this
just totally
case,
trusting our staff here that they'll take care of the code on the water and on the landscaping, so.
I think,
Do you have the clarity you need for a development agreement? That's the question. I think I'd like to say, do you have the clarity you need for the development agreement? I think we've been very clear.
I think what I've heard is that the development agreement essentially states that they must retain the water on site and meet the code requirements for landscaping. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
I think we've got it right there. As long as we adhere to that, we're good. Okay?
Madam Mayor?
Yes. Point of clarity?
Point of clarity. I did have in the motion, basically what Rodney was stating about a DEA, stormwater was to be retained on site. Are we still including the 6-foot wide landscape berm to be provided on the south side of the property?
Madam Mayor, I will amend my motion to just say, as stated, that it follows all rules and regulations that are currently in place.
Okay. Does the second agree to that change? Thank you. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. I think we have clarity on our development agreement. Unless there's no further discussion, roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Jingula?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Reynolds?
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Are we good out there? Good. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for waiting this evening. Okay, we have 3 more items in unfinished business, and I'd like to move to those real quickly before we break for an executive session. So item 9.1 is an action item. This is the first reading of ordinance of annexation and zoning for multiple portions of road right-of-way for Caleb Leclerc, representing the City of Nampa Engineering Division. It is approved by legal, and it is requested to pass under suspension of rules. That's a long one. Here we go.
Okay. An ordinance of the City of Nampa, Idaho, determining that certain lands be annexed and zoned as follows. Number 1, 4.86 acres along Madison Road between Birch Lane and Northside Boulevard to IL Light Industrial Zoning District. Number 2, 9.10 acres of Midland Boulevard between Cherry Lane and Ustick Road, and a small sliver of right-of-way along the south side of Ustick Road to IL Light Industrial Zoning District. Number 3, 3.04 acres of Ustick Road between Birch Lane and Northside Boulevard to RS7 Single Family Residential Zoning District. Number 4, 1.86 acres of West Flamingo Avenue between Midway Road and North Amaron Avenue to RS6 Single Family Residential Zoning District. Number 5, 7.62 acres of North Canada Road between Cherry Lane and East Landry Street with right-of-way for the Idaho Center Boulevard and Cherry Lane Roundabout to RS7 Single Family Residential Zoning District. Number 6, 2.74 acres of Locust Lane just west of the Happy Valley Road to RS6 Single Family Residential Zoning District. Number 7, 4.01 acres of Locust Lane east of Happy Valley Road to RS6 Single Family Residential Zoning District. Number 8, 5.89 acres of Orchard Avenue from half-mile west of North Middleton Road to the west boundary of Laurelwood subdivision to RS6 Single Family Residential Zoning District. Number 9, 29.99 acres of East Franklin Road between Star Road and McDermott Road and south of East Franklin Road, purchased by the state of Idaho for the State Highway 60 project for DB1 Gateway Business Zoning District. Number 10, 3.38 acres of Cherry Lane west of Midland Boulevard between the Eagle Christian Church property and the east boundary of the Driftwood subdivision to BC Community Business Zoning District. Number 11, 1.24 acres of the Beaverton Street and Iowa Avenue along the frontage of the Spyglass Ridge subdivision to RS7 Single Family Residential Zoning District. Number 12, 1.25 acres of Happy Valley Road between Wagon Road and the south edge of the Happy Valley Road and East Victory Road roundabout to RS22 Single Family Residential Zoning District. Number 13, 0.39 acres of Happy Valley Road along the frontage of 88 South Happy Valley Road to RS22 Single Family Residential Zoning District. Number 14, .09 acres located at the rear of the properties addressed as 1217, 1223, and 1303 Josh Place to RS6 Single Family Residential Zoning District. Number 15, .95 acre parcel addressed as 2518 West Orchard Avenue to RS6 Single Family Residential Zoning District. And number 16, .42 acre parcel addressed 2519 West Orchard Avenue to RS6 Single Family Residential Zoning District. That said land should be annexed into the City of Nampa. Declaring that lands by proper legal description as described below to be a part of the City of Nampa. Determining that said annexation and zoning is in the best interest of the public and is consistent with the comprehensive plan. Directing the city engineer and the planning and zoning director to add said property to the official zoning maps and other area maps of the city. Providing for recordation, providing for severability, providing an effective date, repealing all ordinances, resolutions, orders, or parts thereof in conflict herewith, and directing the city clerk to file a certified copy of the ordinance and the map of the area to be annexed with Canyon County, State of Idaho, and the Idaho State Tax Commission pursuant to Idaho Code Section 63-215.
Madam Mayor, I move this pass under the suspension of rules.
Second.
Excuse me, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
Ingula.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Item 9.2 is an action item. It's the first reading of ordinance of the zoning map amendment from duplex residential to limited multifamily residential and limited multifamily residential to only limited multiple family residential at 508 East Hawaii for Ideal Custom Homes. And it is requested to pass under suspension of rules.
An ordinance of the City of Nampa, Idaho to provide an RML limited multiple family residential zone designation for a portion of certain lands commonly known as 508 East Hawaii Avenue, Nampa, Idaho, County Parcel R11762, comprising approximately 1.48 acres, more or less. Determining that said zoning is in the best interest of the citizens and consistent with the city's comprehensive plan. Rezoning said property from RD duplex residential to RML limited multiple family residential. Providing for recordation, instructing the city engineer to designate said property as RML limited multiple family residential on the official zoning map and other area maps of the city, subject to the terms of that certain development agreement entered into between the applicant and the City of Nampa, and directing the city engineer to alter the use and area map accordingly, providing for an effective date, and repealing all ordinances, rules, and regulations and parts thereof in conflict herewith.
Who would like to make the motion?
Madam Mayor, I move this pass under the suspension of rules.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
Ingula.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Item 9.3 is an action item. This is the first reading of ordinance of annexation and zoning to RS6 and a potential development agreement for 1.53 acre parcel at 226 and 2230 West Orchard Avenue for Ken Cook, representing Kenneth Roberts. And it is requested to pass under suspension of rules.
An ordinance of the City of Nampa, Idaho, determining that certain lands commonly known as 2226 and 2230 West Orchard Avenue, Nampa, Idaho, County Parcel R31387, comprising approximately 1.53 acres, more or less, lay contiguous to the limits of the City of Nampa, Canyon County, State of Idaho, and that said land should be annexed into the City of Nampa and be zoned RS6 single-family residential, declaring said lands by proper legal description as described below to be a part of the City of Nampa, determining that said annexation and zoning are in the best interest of the public and consistent with the comprehensive plan of the city, directing the city engineer and the planning and zoning director to add said property to the official maps of the City of Nampa and to designate said property as RS6 single-family residential on the official zoning map and other area maps of the city, providing for recordation, providing for severability, providing an effective date, repealing all ordinances, resolutions, orders, or parts thereof in conflict herewith, and directing the city clerk to file a certified copy of the ordinance and the map of the area to be annexed with Canyon County, State of Idaho, and the Idaho State Tax Commission pursuant to Idaho Code Section 63-215.
Madam Mayor, I move this pass under suspension of rules.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
Ingula.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
That concludes our regular council agenda. I would ask for a motion to adjourn into executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 742061A to consider hiring a public employee, staff member, or agent. F, to communicate with legal counsel for for the public agency to discuss legal ramifications or legal options for pending litigation. And J, to consider labor contract matters authorized under this section 74206A 1A and B.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
Jingula.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. As we adjourn into executive session, this is a time for council to take about a 5-ish minute break before we come back. So we'll come back into this room.